Welcome to Ras Temari Radio, Offense Necessary, where we discuss everything but politics. We're here again. I'm Zode. I'm here with Kidus and Mahi. The three of us started this off with episode 1 last week. We're going to talk about our next topic, which we didn't get to last time, which is Mastawes, the Amharic verb for to remember. It's all about remembering history, memory. Hopefully we'll touch on folklore and legend. But the first topic that we wanted to get to was the whole question of origin. And when do we really associate the existence of time? History is usually associated with documents, with written culture, which Ethiopia is exceptional when it comes to this because Ethiopia is one of the few places in Africa that has consistent written culture and therefore consistent history pre-colonial. But if we go further back in time, we're going into archaeology and even into physics, astrophysics, and whatnot. So, Mahi, you had some thoughts about this, about discussing the beginnings
the
of
first
time.
question we should ask before we discuss like the whole Mastawes issue, which is history, is when do we consider it a history, or where is the starting point of actual history? What do you guys think?
I guess it only applies then to I don't think history applies to when before humans existed.
Why not?
I wouldn't consider it history. I guess it's more like
then it's archaeology. It's not our history, but
it's not our history. Then it's archaeology.
It's built material culture. To me, history is methodology, right? Because if you want to talk about history as that which exists before, and then every field of study is history. Math is history because everything that we know in math we learned in the past by necessity, right? Same thing with every other field, right? So we think of history as the
existed
past.
Even before human beings existed. So
correct.
That means history.
Correct. Which is why I don't think math is history.
That brings us to another question: was math invented or discovered?
No, it was always there. We just
discovered it.
Right.
Okay,
so because as like Columbus would say, like
so history is discovered as well.
But he discovered it.
But it was still history is discovered as well, as opposed to history. What history really is, which is methodology, right? Like it's an approach, which means that history again, like I think Kidus and I agree that it's really about written documentation and trying to piece things together. And also, there are two completely different approaches to history, right? As someone who studied history, like in an academic setting. One is history as a liberal arts, intellectual, cultural history. Some people study history through literature, through fiction, through the arts, which is weird to people because this stuff is made up. But intellectual, cultural history, the history of ideas. And then you could do, when you start doing history of ideas, you could do history of philosophy, you could do history of math, you could do history of... And then there's history as a social science. Especially Marxists are big on this, right? That history is actually a social science on the same level as all these quantitative-based methods, and just like anthropology, just like sociology. Or whatever. Yeah. So it's two completely different fields that we attribute.
But I'm sure there are different realms of history or studying through. It could be physics, it could be like through politics, through human evolution, all that. But I think history, in its own sense, means what affects human beings in the past or in the present time.
So would you say discussion on the Big Bang?
Yes,
you say it affects us
directly.
Right.
It affects us, so I'm sure it's part of history.
And
maths
Stephen,
is physics, and physics is maths has been there. Physics has been there, even though we did not exist at the time, but it still affects us, and it still works throughout our lives. So.
And Stephen Hawking, as we discussed before, wrote a book called The Brief History of Time, so he's using history in that sense as well.
Yeah.
Like if we could write a history
but he specified a brief history of time.
Right,
exactly.
right. So not of human beings,
exactly.
but if you could do a history of the universe. Yeah. Now you're going far back, and I remember even speaking of like well-known public people, educators in that field. Neil deGrasse Tyson was asked, like, well, what exactly happened before the Big Bang Theory, Big Bang, which is we're still not 100% sure the Big Bang.
No, but like even when
you
talk about time.
Right, he's like, well, theoretical physicists are now really trying to figure that out. That's another question. It's like before 14 billion years.
Yeah.
Or is that the initiation of time, and is there nothing before 14 billion years?
Yeah.
Can we conceptualize
when you say like past, the past is the time being. So it doesn't just start when we existed. Time has always been there.
No, I'm not.
Before.
It's the definition of history that I'm not saying it didn't exist before humans existed.
No, but
what I meant is I think history is about the human interaction with some things.
No, I mean like if time existed before us, things have been happening, even though we were not there. If things have been
can we
happening,
consider that history?
those
That's my
are
question.
history too. Yeah.
So
well, has time always been there, or is that an assumption too? Because again,
Yes.
do we know that there was time before 14 billion
Well, we
years?
know for a fact that after the Big Bang Theory, the whole loop of history kind of, like the whole loop of time was started in Earth. So that's where we are. So we don't know about the other planets or
Right.
what was been,
Yeah.
like, our universe
But
was
we're
created
pretty sure.
then,
but
right?
wouldn't you say history is social science?
It's part of it.
It's part of it.
Do you see it as social science more than as a humanities?
No, it could be. No, history is a very broad spectrum of terms.
Yeah.
It could be social science. It could be like evolutionary. Even like cultural and religious histories are still part of history.
Sure.
Which
but
is still
they're
part of
very
social
di-
science.
Yes,
Yeah.
When we
that's
talk-
But
very
is this, would you
different.
say it's part of? But it's not part of natural science, right?
I mean, yes, they're like they
Scientists
can be
don't really.
intersectional.
Scientists are not necessarily historians. You know, they,
No.
it's
Yeah,
different things.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
They could be intersectional.
A little bit to influence them, but they were showing that chimps were developing the tool. They were sharpening. You heard about this, right?
Yeah.
This is a little over 15. They were sharpening tools, and the
They were
males
learning
were attacking, and the
languages,
women were doing the sharpening, and they were dividing labor and all that within a few years of being held in captivity in close contact with humans. So no, evolution is not a static process, and
No,
everybody who has a mutation, like the stuff with their teeth, or these little mutations that human beings have. There you have proof of evolution right there, right? So.
Yeah. So. What
I hope
you're
this
saying
doesn't
is,
offend anyone who's anti-evolution who's listening.
I mean, if they're offended,
That's
then more than
necessary.
happy. It's- I mean,
Offensive?
they need to wake up.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know how people in this modern day and age can still not understand how, or at least just because they seem to think that evolution means that somebody gave birth to a human and you evolved within one generation.
Right,
It's
right.
not.
10 years,
But
10
when you
years.
consider how long it is
Right.
and how many factors come into it,
Wow, wow, it's
of
like
course it's
1
very
million
possible
years.
that things. It's not only possible; it's very probable, and most definitely happened that animals evolve. Plants, anything, any living thing
We
evolves
see
to
it.
survive.
We're
You know what I mean?
seeing it happen.
We see it. I mean,
Well,
constantly.
how do you explain your tailbone?
Yeah.
We all have a tailbone.
Yeah.
Feel your tailbone. That's because your ancestors tens of millions of years ago. But people also have a hard time conceptualizing time.
Yeah.
Like that, so it's like, what do you mean tens of millions? I used to come from a like it's not
Yeah.
you. It's like it's tens of millions
Exactly.
of generations.
It's not
where-
overnight.
Yeah. And
But
I mean, you didn't just come from a monkey. You came from a single-celled organism. If you
Yeah.
really want to go far back in the ocean.
I guess
you know
it's
what
just that people are offended by the idea that we came from monkeys, because the idea just seems so crazy to them, because they think, somehow a monkey gave birth to a human. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, we came from monkeys. That
Oh,
doesn't
we
make
do
sense.
look a lot like monkeys.
Absolutely. That's what
it
that's
seems
why-
more arbitrary that God would create
Absolutely.
human beings that are so similar
That's
but
why I
have
think
no
we don't
connection.
like monkeys. Here's the thing: you'd think that of all the animals, that humans would have been very, at least, you would have pets as monkeys more than because we're close to them. But the fact that we're so close to them, I think, freaks us out.
Yeah.
We
just
don't
makes us
really.
uncomfortable
Even
in
people
general.
that have monkeys as pets, really, we
Right.
find them weird. You know what I mean?
But see,
'Cause
similarity.
we're always this close to having sex with them.
But see, similarity
Yeah,
and
yeah.
commonality is not. It's the same with relationships with the opposite gender. Just because you have a lot in common doesn't mean you're compatible. Sometimes
Yeah, of course,
opposites
of course,
attract.
yeah.
So like our similarities with monkeys doesn't mean that they're the pets that we mostly, for the most part, the pets that we have, other than if it's like a goldfish or something like that, the pets that we have, dogs and cats.
Yeah.
Evolved they
be
evolved
better
as our
pets?
cats, yeah.
Yeah.
They-
Yeah.
as our
Yeah,
they are
it's just,
species that we
reading
created.
this,
Yeah.
progressive evolution about domesticated animals, and with dogs and cats, they literally have evolved to have different voices and different sounds, because cats have, like, you've seen wild cats and the
Yeah.
wild lions. They do not meow, or they do not have like a range of voices. Only
growl.
cats do.
Yeah,
They
I
growl
think
and-
a lot of them evolved to have much more cuter
Yeah.
aspect. You know what I mean? Like
Yes.
the look, the
Because
puppy,
cute-
puppy look when he
cuteness
wants
is
food.
an
Cuteness
evolution, yeah.
is something that we selected. We selectively.
But
breed
that's
it,
true
you
of
know
our
what I mean?
babies as well.
Yeah.
I mean, probably a lot of human babies were not that good, and the ugliness of human babies. Because those mothers were like, "Listen, I know I'm a mammal, and I know that I'm supposed to really have this maternal instinct, but I like the cuter one better."
Yeah.
And then I'm only half joking.
Baby
I like what
animals in general are
Only-
very good.
Like you said, half jokes.
Just like I think it's just on evolutionary standpoint. Baby animals are just like very much physically appealing, even for different traits. and
I
animals.
think
But
it's an
there's-
innate
that's-
need to protect them. I think that
Right.
we find them cute because it kind of to
even if
propagate
it's
the
just
species.
another
possibly.
animal.
You know what I
too.
mean? We
Possibly, but
they're
it's
not
also
inherently
possible
cute,
that
you know what I mean?
the cute ones are the ones that had survived long enough
Survived.
to reproduce, precisely because they were protected more.
I
That's
think
true with
I
dogs.
think
Why
the
would it be true
concept
with
of cuteness,
babies?
also, the fact that the concept of cuteness, the idea, I think it evolved to we evolved to feel, to sense cuteness, to protect the young ones,
Yes.
to propagate the species. Because otherwise it has
because of
no other
parasitic-
purpose, right?
yeah.
It has no other purpose.
No, but it's because
You
it
know what I
came
mean?
from
So
that
it makes you weak, if
parasitic.
anything.
Yeah, I know it does. It
It,
does.
no, it came from that parasitic point of view because as any kind of animals, we like that like damsel in distress vibe where we
Right.
can just protect
Savior,
ones.
or
So
savior
like
complex.
babies, we consider them cute because they were just like innocent creatures that would
Yeah.
just die if we did something to them. So we just associate the looks of babies as
Other animals.
to cuteness.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
what we call cute because
Yeah.
not just they're physically appealing. That came later.
Yeah.
The first thing is like they're so needy, they're so parasitic,
Physically appealing.
they're so and then that kind of turned into I
Yeah,
have to
what do you
protect
think?
them and care for them,
Mm.
and that like physical appeal just
Yeah.
because
And,
like
and
what
then we
is
kind of
physical
associate it
appeal?
with other things. Because we even call inanimate objects cute sometimes. You know what I mean? If you
But
see a little
yes,
tiny hammer, you're like,
tiny,
oh, look at
small
that tiny
ones.
cute
But, like,
thing.
what
That is
is
interesting. Yeah,
physically
we
appealing
project
or-
that onto
Mm.
we
Yeah,
don't
what
project a
really-
lot of other human qualities onto rocks and
Yeah,
stuff.
tiny cars, like,
yeah,
oh,
it's a cute little car.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because like they're baby sized.
Yeah,
And not to
exactly.
mention
You
like
assume
the
babies,
whole
yeah.
idea of cuteness is like just an idea. It was created by like human brain.
Mhm.
Because like big things can be cute too. Like we see like giant teddy bears and we still say, oh look, they're so cute.
Right.
Why?
Yeah,
Because
cuddly teddy
they
bears.
have that like chubby look of babiness
like baby
within
look.
them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
Which
yeah.
I think gets us to Oxamite Empire.
Wait.
Is there no? See, this is
Before we
one of
go-
our starting
Nothing
points.
says
Before-
cute more than
Well,
phallic
let's talk
Before
about
we go
large
there-
things.
No. Before we go there, there's one person.
Okay.
Civilizations is definitely
We'll
after
put the
this.
Oxamite Empire onto the
Yeah,
shelf.
so because
Right
after
now.
evolutionary standpoint, we project it to civilization.
Right.
But before we go there, there is a creation of religion. So why do you think people like from the evolutionary standpoint tried to create?
Do you think it's part?
that
Do you think it's part of our nature to create religion?
I don't think so because there are so many
Because
small
the
parts in
evidence
Africa,
does
very
seem to prove-
ancestral.
yeah, but those are the
plants that
exceptions.
Never had any form of.
But those are the
religious
exceptions,
aspects
right?
through
But when you
them.
look at most tribes and most societies, they
I
seem
think
to
it
develop
comes
their own
from-
religions independently.
No, I think it comes from trying to unite. If we were given the chance to, like, if it was, the earth was so wide enough and so protective that the environment and the climate was so adequate for everyone, I don't think we would create.
Well, I mean,
religion.
you're right. If there's one aspect of religion,
Because religion,
especially
at the core of religion, is
institutionally,
about
that is-
God, right? It's about finding the Creator, and it's finding
Wow.
purpose, right? So I think we will always.
But you're talking
ask
about
that
religion
question.
as a system of belief, as opposed to religion as
Yeah, exactly.
institutions.
No,
for
but
social
that's what I mean.
control.
That's where I
that
think that's
comes
where it
later.
comes from. I think
What
that's
she's
where it
talking
comes
about
from, though.
is cohesion and control, which
But I
comes
think
later.
that's where it comes from.
Right.
yeah.
Before that, you're right.
Yeah.
Right. It comes from personification, usually of constellations
Yeah.
and of other natural phenomena, and trying to make sense of it. And that's where myth making comes from, right?
Yeah.
But like astrology, our understanding of constellations, mythology,
Yeah.
and monotheistic religion, and other kinds of fictions. Sorry, but fictions.
They are fictions.
They're not discrete categories. They all kind of, astrology feeds into
sects,
religion,
yeah.
yeah,
Or it's
religion and mythology and other kinds of fictions, legend and all that. It's often difficult to tell to tell the
So maybe it's
elements
innate
of each
human
of
nature,
these.
is what I mean, to
Yeah.
mythologize
I don't
and
think it's
to
nature
create
that's what I
heroes.
mean, like-
Especially before science, right? This is
Yeah,
why
yeah.
Nietzsche said,
Yes.
like, God is dead, science killed
Unexplainable. It was
God,
a way
because
to
when we can't explain
explain the
anything else, right?
unexplainable.
One of the reasons I say that is even after, even in the modern era, where religion has gone out of fashion in developed countries, they seem to give religious attributes to other things, such as, for instance, science has become the new
Right.
religion. If you know what I mean.
Amongst
Not
some
for
people.
scientists, but for the general public. Science, they seem to think of science as this. Because think about it, like when the coronavirus happened. Everybody was so sure is like, they'll find a vaccine. There's no doubt about it. There's that confidence in science that they used to have for religion.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Because people have to
There is
worship
no-
something.
Yeah,
Human
exactly.
beings
And
have
they
to worship
science.
something.
And
Right.
even if they kind of,
Oh,
here's the thing.
Or they
have
worship
to.
other forms of
No, they
ideology.
have to. No, but they just seem to do that.
He's
though.
right. He's right because they'll worship.
It doesn't
Here's a
come
couple of other
naturally, though.
examples.
I don't
I
think
think
it
Here's
it
a
might
couple of
be
other
human
examples.
nature, yeah.
Marxism is in one example, right? Marx, and like these figures were worshipped. Lenin, and in some
a religious
cases,
sense.
Stalin in a religious sense.
Yeah.
They took on the qualities of a religion that they were trying to replace, and then also. Now, like there's this like neoliberal fetishization, like the like these people, like in America they call them libertarians, in Europe they call them, but who are like fetishizing the market, and they're really into like these weird little rituals. A lot of these are like hipster types, like gather in certain like hipster centers, and they fetishize Milton Friedman.
No,
there is certain elements of this because people need to worship. It's not religion, but worship.
The idea of fetishizing the concept of fetishizing an idea and following it well through is not the same as finding out like this creator to find meaning for you. Like that modern sense of like knowing about science and even believing in and kind of like having a religion of its science is so different from believing in a thing that does not exist.
I'm not talking about people like you. I'm not, because here's the thing. There's people that understand the limitations of science, that have a good grasp of what science is, right? Mm-hmm. I'm not talking about those people. I'm talking about there seems to be this new trend where a lot of people are so sure that they believe so much in science. They believe so much in science that if it doesn't achieve what they want it to achieve, such as finding a vaccine, they think it's they're hiding it. There's no way that science did not find it.
Right,
you know, they just do not have the understanding of what it is.
Science is a process,
the religious process,
right.
You know,
which is not what science is.
If it doesn't save us, somebody's lying.
I agree.
You know what I mean?
And the other aspect of
that's where conspiracy theories come in. Because if you ever talk to the modern conspiracy theorists, they use a lot of scientific lingo.
Yeah.
They're not like all crazy people anymore. You know what I mean? They use a lot of psychology terms, and they seem like they understand science, but they don't. They give this.
They want to incorporate it,
you know,
to legitimize
it with religion.
And one thing you mentioned to me when we were talking about this some months ago, just personally, is where does it come? The monotheistic tendency come from? Part of it is we are raised, most of us, by a mother and father, or by some kind of caretaker figure who replaces them at a young age. So the father and the mother kind of take on this godly aspect, looking down on you at our most formative stages. So we seek that, and we project that onto our universe, onto the constellation. Right. Is a father figure, a mother figure, right? That raises each of us.
Sometimes people grow up and they find it in God. If they can't find it in God, they find it in the leader of the country. That's where loyalty to your country, you know, like the whole cult of personality comes. Like you said, it could be Stalin.
Yeah. The fatherland, the motherland.
They give it this protector vibe.
But the difference is, like, when it comes to religion, there is no questioning. There's just, like, the things you don't understand.
When it comes to nationalism as well, there's no questioning.
No, but, like, come on.
I'm talking about extreme, like we're talking about North Korea and
or the Nazis.
If through nationalism, if you have that idea of, wait, this is not right, you can still question it. Yes, it would cost you quite a lot, but you will still be open enough to question it. But with religion and belief, you do not have that like ideology. Everything's closed off. It's dead. Like
religion is
like,
foolproof. Religion is a genius scam.
And that's
what I love about it. The whole idea of blind faith. I'm sorry. It's the last guard right at the gate. You might try to leave, but then I was like, blind faith. You question.
So if it wasn't for the existence of survival as human beings, I don't think we would create religion or institutionalized religion. It came out of need to be together. But we will always need
to feel safe. It's not just about physical safety. That's what I think it is. That's why we kind of
comfort,
like
solace.
In a way, it gives it meaning. You know what I mean?
When there are resources for everyone, which is like not a concept that would ever work in the real world that we have now, or like in the evolutionary world. If there was though an abundance of resources for everyone, do you think we would create religion?
Oh, absolutely.
That's my question.
Absolutely.
But why would we need to do that?
Because we will always. It's what we were discussing on our first episode. The suffering was it's built into the human condition, right? We'll always have suffering. Even if we had all the resources, you can have all the food you want, you can have all the land you want. Suffering and doubt and questioning, I don't know what will happen tomorrow. And I don't even know why I was created. You know, what's my purpose? Those questions will always remain. And you want to find answers though. So either you'll fill it with capitalism, you're created to make money, or you're created...
Purpose. Like people who do not believe in
is what I want to say. Is what I found out that
they find that purpose somewhere else.
Atheists also seem to have created a religion out of atheism. Right. Because I met some atheists, by the way.
Or out of something.
And then they have these meetups, and they're like, we have this atheist convention. We meet every Thursday. You should come over. It's like, I left one religion, man. I'm not joining another.
Right. But it's one form of worship or another.
Exactly.
If they don't worship,
they get together
atheism,
and discuss
they'll have to
thinking.
worship.
You know, it's like, I can do that by myself.
Some people claim to worship religion, but they really worship money. A lot of people worship money.
Yeah.
Some people worship their own looks. Everybody worships something. You have to be careful what you worship, because if you really worship something, you will never really have that feeling satisfied. Otherwise, you have to find something else to worship. This is a human human tendency.
Yes, it's a human tendency to worship something.
Yeah, exactly.
But to have an organized religion, I don't think it's
Not always. Not always.
Yeah.
That's just
But
one.
they do
one
tend to
example.
kind of gravitate towards
Right.
each other,
Like,
and
to
they get
worship an
stronger and
idea,
stronger. You know what I mean?
So, yeah, to worship an idea, to idealize it more than like it's more important to me than anything. That's just human character.
When you
But
look at
to make
how
it into an organized religion, I
but
don't
here's the,
think
when you
that's
look at how
human
America
nature,
and the
though.
Soviet Union back then instilled to this day America was the way they treat economic systems. Doesn't it remind you of religion?
Yes.
The whole
Yeah,
capitalism,
there was
communism,
absolutely,
idea.
absolutely.
It's very.
Yeah.
It really sounds like religion.
By
except
the way,
without God.
the example you were giving of atheism, there are certain capitals in Europe where they've legally been allowed to have these like places of anti-worship, like where they'll announce over just like in Islamic cities you have like the sound blessing from the place of worship. They'll be like, there is no God, you people are just kidding yourselves, blah blah blah, and they'll announce this over the. Now a lot of people find this this is like a provocation, this is not real, but there is even this tendency to among atheists to find either worship atheism or worship fetishize science or fetishize market or worship some other. But everybody looks to worship something, right? If you have nothing to worship, then another kind of spiritual crisis emerges, right? So, but I think this gets us back to the phallic symbols in Aksum.
Now
The
we
Aksum
can talk
Empire.
about
we can
Right.
circle
religious,
back.
the
So-
religious aspect kind of forming into small civilization all over.
So,
You're walking out of the
so
room.
can
This
we
is when
agree
speak of
if-
phallic systems?
No,
You're
no,
just
no.
readjusting.
can we agree that the Aksums, if the steles or the obelisks are dicks of Ethiopia? Can we say the Lalibela is the vagina? of
Phalluses
Ethiopia?
is what
Yeah.
we're trying to use like not too vulgar language.
No, it's not vulgar.
It's
It's
okay.
not vulgar, like vagina.
Richard.
Normal body
Yeah.
organs. So
Richard,
Diminutive for Richard.
They're the Richards.
Well, I don't mean to take a shot at Aksum Hotel or any of these other places, restaurants or hotels that are named after or designed after Aksum, but it is funny to me when I walk into a place like there's an Aksum Hotel right on Howrah Road in Addis Ababa, and I walk in and like the chair is made. It looks like a dick. The window looks like a dick. Everything, and by the way, they're beautifully drawn and all. But these are.
the intention though.
I'm
the
just
original
saying,
obelisks.
original. I don't think the
Christianity on
person
its
who created the
own
hotel
basis
put that.
is
No, not the hotel. I'm talking about the original.
What were you saying?
Christianity is primarily patriarchal.
Of course.
And
But do you
Ethiopia
think-
Therefore,
wanted
But do you
to
think
found
was that
it.
was
Yeah,
that
phallocentric.
vulgar? Where they wanted we should have giant
yes.
dicks around town.
Oh yes.
What the hotels and
pretty
restaurants
sure
or
they
the
are.
people who built
original
it? But see, they didn't think of it as vulgar. They were just they're very
But
early
Here's
people.
what confused me.
They
Every time
think
people
like-
talk about structures and how phallic they are, is there any other way to build structures? By
Yes, there
nature,
is.
they would have to end up as phallic.
It doesn't
Oh,
have
yes,
to be like
there
a
is.
tower, and it doesn't have to be drawn like that, like the Aksumite.
Yes, there
Those-
is.
those
Like,
all-
there's
those
so
all
many
look
other-
does give it
very
away.
exactly.
The tip is a bit,
everything about it, but I understand it. Like to them, there's that moment. I
you
think
think
of
Because the
Eiffel
other alternative is to
Tower
dig
and
inside.
Yeah.
Then you have
Alborg,
Then you have a
all the-
vulva.
no,
Then you have
No,
You
so
think
when
Lalibela
you think
is
of Eiffel
vaginal.
Tower,
Absolutely.
no,
Then
if
it
you
must
think
be.
of Eiffel
If
Tower and
Aksum
the
was-
Borg and everything.
Let's
all
all take
of those.
turns now. I think our audience is overwhelmed by us.
No, but like
Three of
when
us
you
talking
think of Alborg and like the all of like Eiffel Tower and all that, like they're all like pointy at the end.
Sure.
That doesn't, yeah,
I
There are swords for
Is it for
for-
structural integrity or something?
not at all.
I would
You could
imagine
just,
it's
like,
harder to
build it
erect
like a box.
like yeah.
Why
I
don't
would
you just
imagine it's
build it
harder
like a
to-
box though?
Right.
Oh, like skyscrapers.
Yeah, like why
they're
does
also
it have
kind
to
of
be
phallic.
There
pointed
are other
at the end?
structures besides phallus. Even that is a phallocentric.
Yeah, exactly.
Why don't you just like
Give me
put
an
it-
example of a very tall tower that you can make that is not phallic shaped. Give me an example of an existing structure like that.
Oh, I don't know.
Well, if you use the
They're
twin
all-
towers, yeah,
The
two.
twin tower, okay.
Nah,
Then you have
Two dicks.
and two dicks.
So maybe we're projecting our own obsession with phallus.
Yeah,
I'm
maybe
just
that's what I
saying.
mean.
No, but
There's
a lot of
absolutely,
them.
that's what
No.
I'm saying.
A lot of the.
Unless you want to make a
Christian-
floating building.
No, a lot of the Christian domes are like very wide and circular.
But they're still a little phallic. They're just
No,
they're quite
circular,
girthy. I'd say
don't-
it's girthy phallic.
They're literally.
There
like,
is something to this besides just the physicality
Oval
of it,
shaped.
right? Like there's that moment in Game of Thrones, for those who watch Game of Thrones, where Jaime Lannister and Bronn have this conversation when they see the Unsullied, the army without dicks, and then like it's like Bronn is like, well, you wouldn't see me fighting an army if I didn't have a dick. What am I going to do with the money? What am I going to do? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And Jaime then goes, well, what about gold? What about family? And you realize it. Then he goes, maybe it is all dicks in the end, right? Like perhaps the when people use the term phallocentric, not even in a feminist context, not even in the narrative of like, oh, this is so terrible, men are so horrible, but like,
in terms of-
is there some sense
That's
that
the
like
sense- that's the
like
ultimate
all of human history is built
pleasure.
around the male phallus, right? Like
Sure.
and the drives that the men.
no, but like men are
male
generally
phallus
told that is all they are. like their masculinity lies in their dicks.
And specifically their penis.
Yes, like men would say,
think
I would
tell them
rather
that.
die
It's just
being
inherent, I
castrated.
think. Yeah, I think it's an inherent to us. You don't need to be
It's
told
not
that.
an inherent thing
I don't
at
think it's a
all.
cultural
Like I don't
thing.
think so. No.
I think that
Men are
fear,
naturally
I think
told
the fear of
that-
castration is almost like, I don't know, subconscious level. I think babies have that fear even.
No.
You know?
Yeah.
I think, you know,
Women
I
But
think-
get-
that might be a historical thing too, because human beings for many, many years, like when they would defeat their their conquests, or they would they would enslave, they would castrate the other.
Isn't
man.
that
That's
the
how
whole-
they
Women
took
are
their-
castrated all
Wasn't
the
that
time. You don't
Freud's
hear them
thing
talking about.
fear of castration when babies, when they
No, women get castrated
they get
on a daily
attracted to
basis
their mothers
since
and-
the history of time. You don't hear them saying,
not in the
my
same
femininity
sense.
has gone down now.
But not in
that
the
I'm-"
same sense,
It's
right?
the same sense.
But
They
I-
lose their basic instinct of sexuality when they are like.
But I suppose
Yeah.
femininity isn't associated with one organ as much as masculinity and really human history.
What else if
And
it's not
patriarchy is-
sexuality?
Well, I mean, I'm not saying sexuality. I'm just saying sexuality is not just associated with that one organ, right? I mean, like women have breasts, women have other
No,
parts.
breasts
Women-
have
the
been
female form-
sexualized by the patriarchy.
I agree.
Breasts are just
I'm not
breasts.
I'm
I
not
do
saying
not see
otherwise.
them as a sexual
I'm not
thing.
saying
not
otherwise.
necessarily. For
You could just say that about
for instance,
asses for women as well.
from
If
what
you're
I-
Exactly.
gonna say that.
Exactly.
But here's the thing.
But
The
that's
female
the
form, correct me if I'm wrong.
perspective
The
of
female
other
form
men
is not
doing
reduced
this.
to
women,
one
women, who have breast cancer and have to, get their breast cut off.
Yeah.
They also describe how it's harrowing because they feel like they're kind of losing their femininity.
Because of the
Yeah.
patriarchy.
Do you think it's because of that patriarchy, or
Yes.
do you think because it's part of her and it's
No,
who she
no,
is?
no,
You know what I mean?
no.
She wouldn't
It
care.
has nothing to
But
do
she-
with that.
Really? You
Yeah,
don't-
it has
because
nothing to do.
it's also-
If it wasn't
no,
for
it's-
the patriarchy
it's-
saying
no,
breasts
it's not
are
just
parts
about-
of
no, it's not
femininity,
just about the sexual
no
aspect.
woman would
It's
actually
also
say,
how she
I
feeds
have
her
lost
babies,
my
isn't it?
femininity by losing my breasts.
It's also how she,
Well,
for the
counter
baby,
exa-
there's
example
the
is
nursing the baby
the
aspect. to it, isn't it?
to answer your question,
That's-
the proto-feminist ideal is the Amazon woman, right? And the Amazon woman, I don't know what exactly they do with the men, how they control so that they can propagate, but it's the women who run anything, and they'll literally slice off one of their breasts.
Really?
Right, you know about this, right?
Yeah.
The Amazon women, they would slice off one of their breasts so that they could use it for the hunt to take on a patriarch or like a male kind of role in other societies, where they would take on they would slice off the breast so that they could operate
Aim
a bow and
better,
arrow.
yeah.
Operate a bow and arrow and take on that more masculine. And in so doing, they're giving up that female nurture role. So that exists, but of course, that is. First of all, I'm not even sure if the Amazon women existed or anything like that. Right? Like this is in isolation. Generally, human history is patriarchal. It's phallocentric, right? Like there are matrilineal societies, early ones,
Yeah.
but.
No, I
But
don't doubt
you
that.
have
What
some
I'm
thoughts on
asking
this
is how
because
much
you
of it
all-
is
right.
how much of it is learned and how much of it is nature. That's what I'm
And
trying to
that's
figure out.
what we
You know
don't know.
I mean? Yeah, exactly.
That's the $1 million question.
Yeah.
Right? But you want to talk about like the whole Yuval Harari thing and like your ideas about your views about how
Yeah.
women accepted patriarchy and it's for social
survival,
yeah,
yes,
for social cohesion and
Yeah.
kind of accepted taking a back
Because
role.
Even in
I think
general,
there's some
for-
validity to that.
Yeah, like and for survival, there had to be a role that had to be played,
Yeah.
and we played to our strengths all the time, right?
Yeah.
As humans, and our strength at those times were just to survive.
Yeah.
The ideology of getting ourselves heard or having equal rights or the ideologic enlightenments we have as humans now were not
No.
priorities then
No, of course
because
not.
that was our first priority
This
to
wasn't
survive,
even,
right?
This wasn't even ancient history. We're
Yes,
talking
but
like
then-
150 years ago.
Yes, when the survival was attained to some extent, when people just got away from the evolution and fighting against the woolly mammoth and the tigers and all
Yeah,
that,
yeah.
and just became an actual advanced human being, that's when things took a turn because by then patriarchy has already become an institution
Yeah.
and religion has been backing it up already, and our history has become the history of maternity
Yeah,
or
so-
the
so
history
it's pretty
of
unshakable-
motherhood.
Unshakable status quo is
Yes,
created.
and then as humans, we are so selfish as well.
Yeah.
So our selfishness is always okay, we have existed this civilization now, the Aksumite Empire and the Incan and the Mayan Empire and all the prehistoric empires that really existed
Centuries,
after
yeah.
evolutionary standpoint was met. And those civilizations were more into thinking about, okay, now that we have an institutionalized civilization, how do we expand it?
Yeah.
And that was like naturally given now, because it was just like, okay, now for survival, you have said, okay, let's bow down to the male masses for survival. Okay, that's where you're gonna get, and just like keep on hampering it down. So I think the existence of matriarchy, the existence of patriarchy against women started out as a good thing because we needed to survive, and then it became what the misogynistic mentality it is. The spoiled and dirty form of humanity just started.
Where exploitation and
the exploitation and all the bad stuff happened.
In the current world, do you think it's getting better?
Yes, but not in the way that you would think. It's because a lot of the masculinity is being crushed down, not by femininity, not just by femininity, but by the male personas actually like knowing and understanding that they could be more. And the rise of multiple genders and multiple sexualities, that really helps. That really helps to break down masculinity, because men have been not listening to women for a long time, but now that people have a broad spectrum of what gender and sexuality is, they're always like, the first thing to deconstruct is the masculinity form, because the femininity form has always been there but not against anything. But masculinity has always been against. Like it was built upon what it means.
Question it.
So when people are questioning it and broadening their horizon of sexuality, it literally basically breaks down masculinity.
But don't you think at the same time, it seems that, like you said, a lot of people are getting, they're open-minded, they want to understand things, sexuality and gender, all that. And at the same time, this new wave of knowledge is also making some of the men, which are already have a lot of toxic masculinity, double down and become more aggressive with their.
Sure, but how is that?
All of a sudden it's trending.
How long is that gonna wait? Then is not gonna. How long is that gonna remain? Because the toxic masculinity is not out. Like, it's not even a trend anymore. Even if you are not actively feminist, if you I don't want to say that concept, but even if you're not outwardly towards the equality of women, the toxic masculinity is not a horizon you want to be on, because as religion and as the anarchist governments, it's going out.
Yeah, but it seems really divided on, and then the other side is
the more
really
aggressive it is.
Yes,
the more aggressive it is, the more extremist small view that you have. Because nowadays, aggression and any kind of power mongering or power fights is not the way of the norm nowadays.
But
nobody really likes.
But you can't underestimate the other side either. That's how Trump won. Pretty much, isn't it? You know what I mean? Remember the surprise of Trump winning, right? That's pretty much what it was, right? Nobody would think that.
But it was a fluke. Do you know what happened? Okay, our country is dying now.
Oh, I know.
The craziness has happened.
Do you think there's any chance that he might get re-elected?
I don't think so.
But there's a chance.
There's a chance for everything.
Yeah, good.
But the likelihood is very small. I'm sorry, but
really,
I really think it's very small, because come on, Americans in general, you could say anything about them. They're very they don't have much of a knowledge. Deliberate ignorance is still there. Yeah. But they love their patriotism more than anything. And
they think Trump is patriot. That's the problem.
But no, in the world sense, the people
really
literally
they think the world
they were
is America.
so disrespected, but even to each other, because they kind of felt ashamed, because there was this stupid guy telling them to drink detergents and bleach to solve a disease. Forget about that.
Or as they said, hey, at least he's honest, or whatever the fuck they think. I don't get it.
But honesty is one thing, but as a leader, to say these things is just I think now the kind of presidents and leaders they mock just came back home to them now. They cannot get away from this.
As an Ethiopian, do you think it's bad that if Trump, what's happening in America, if Trump got re-elected, do you think
that would
be
good for us?
Yeah, exactly.
It would really be good for other countries. Because he's just so self-involved. He's very underactive. He's always
So it's pretty good for the rest of the world.
It is. It's very it was one of the really nice times.
I think it's connected
for the rest of the world.
I think it's somehow connected to the fact that the power, the government change in Ethiopia that happened to and then I think the fact that America was so distracted with Trump
that
had
was the
something to
very
do with
big
it, you know what I
advantage,
mean?
by the way. Yeah, it was one of the best, not just in Ethiopia, but like most other countries.
All of a sudden, it's like this bully forgot about you. You know what I mean? So it's not so bad for the world.
If it's a bad leader, it reflects very negatively to the whole country, but it reflects positively,
So
especially if it's a big country.
So we should lobby for Trump to win.
No, I don't think I should. I want to do that. He still had the nukes in his hands.
That's probably why the Russians want him in office.
Crazy. Yeah?
That's probably why the Russians want him in office.
Probably.
Yeah.
I think they would still do that if it's
do.
allowed. And with the whole idea of...
That's what America's been doing for the rest of the world, though. They make sure that you don't really get a great leader, right? They kind of give you a shitty one.
Of course.
So it's time we wish them the same.
I mean, I don't know. I don't believe in an eye for an eye. So for me, I do not agree with that. But it would definitely work out for the better if that actually happened.
Yeah.
But yeah, when it comes to generally getting back to our topic, the history of civilization and the phallic kind of mentality, do you think it would have been a better version as humans if it was priority, or if it was majorly the civilizations were matriarchal?
I think so, yeah.
How so?
Because there's in the animal kingdom also there's a few animals that are mostly matriarchal, right?
Like lions?
The bonobo apes. Lions are also, I think...
lions are matriarchal.
Yeah, but the ruler is still the king.
No.
Yeah, it is.
Literally, women...
They hunt.
No, women get together and kill the leader, if they do not like him.
Yeah, but he's still the king that they bring him food.
Not at all.
But wouldn't matriarchal mean that the leadership
the one that controls the resources is the leader.
Are matriarch, right?
Okay, the one that controls the leader is... The one that controls the resources is the leader.
With that logic, wouldn't you say that even the human kingdom, the human civilization...
No, women do not have any of the resources.
But they still can, not resources, but they can still kill the king. That's what I mean. They still can.
No, they can't.
Right?
No,
but
they can't.
I think the question is... I think the question is the leader a male or a female? Isn't that the question?
Yeah, so in lions, the leaders it's considered there's a pride or a one male there.
Yeah.
But
which he protects.
Whoever makes the decision in the actual pride is the females.
But he kills his cubs, right?
When he comes up to a new pride, yes.
No, even when he has kids. He kills the male cubs. He kills the male cubs because...
He's all out of them. It's not
really?
his own.
So he kills the other males, okay.
If he fights the leader
but he's also protector of the territory, right?
No.
He's a protector.
Are you kidding me?
Okay. No, they hunt.
The women protect. Men basically sit and do nothing.
Which is a king.
This is their job.
Which is a king. Which is the same as humans, right?
God, no. No, not at all. I mean, the idea of doing nothing and the idea of gaining power has nothing to do with sitting and doing nothing. This is the ideology we have as humans. We think the people in power are supposed to do nothing. Are the ones who are we don't have responsibility.
Have sex, which is what the king
let's think of this as well. The biggest things we can imagine as humans are superheroes.
Yeah.
Superheroes have responsibility. They have power. Yeah. They have energies, but they literally have more responsibilities than any other existing being.
Yeah, but superheroes are usually a fantasy of the weak.
I don't think so.
I think so.
I really don't think so.
Because think about it, kids like superheroes because they're weak.
No.
Because they fantasize about having powers.
No, because that's the protect. The kids' mentality, priority is safety. And they think that's
also
the most
power.
safest.
They want power because they don't have power.
Because they want safety because they don't have power.
That's what I meant by weak.
No, it's not weakness. They want safety. And
by weak, I don't mean it as an insult. What I mean is, it's usually the people in power don't really fantasize about
the
superheroes.
Weakest,
you know what I mean?
What you said, the weakest know what is good for them to survive. Those are the ones who know the best.
I mean,
and
the children are weak, right?
That they know the best for themselves because they know they're weak. See,
as
adults,
saying,
as adults, we think we are not weak.
Yeah, we think we're shit.
Yeah. That's when we suffer the most because we don't know who to lead, who would lead us. We're just involved in religions and cultures and all the things that actually do not matter for our survival, right? Yeah. But as kids, their natural instinct is safety and resources. That's it. They need to eat and they need to feel safe.
Yeah.
And they think superheroes are the ones that would do that, which is those people who are powerful
They want to be superiors. Not
and
just-
responsible at the same
Yeah,
time.
but they don't want superiors to protect them. They want to be superiors. Kids.
Because they want to
Yeah.
grow up as that one.
Yeah, exactly.
A responsible and resourceful
That's
person,
what I mean,
right?
yeah.
That's what I mean. So in animal kingdoms and all that, we kind of hide, like as humans, we have that ideology that the king or the most powerful are the ones who do nothing or who know nothing, which is not true.
So would you say
that
bees,
is the
bees, would you say it's
patriarchal,
matriarch-
anarchist
What about
mentality
bees?
of
Would you
us.
say it's patriarchal?
What?
Bees.
Matriarchal, definitely.
Why? Because the same thing applies, doesn't it?
No, but like it's not.
It's literally
just,
the inverse of the lion kingdom.
no,
the lion,
because no, they're female. The workers are male,
Yeah,
but
exactly.
the pupa and all that create the honey
Yeah.
are both sexes.
Yeah, but here's the thing. The like you said, the workers, the one who have the responsibilities. The queen doesn't really have much power.
Yes.
She just sits, right? So with that logic, the power is with the
Yes,
males.
it's more
Right?
the
So with that logic, wouldn't you say it's patriarchal?
Of course it is. But like
that's why I was
I'm
thinking.
saying
That's
it's
why I
not.
was thinking. That's why I was thinking bees, Lenyao, are matriarchal because the one in charge, the
No.
one that they work
No.
for, is a
I
female.
don't think of it that way. Like and it should not be thought of that way because, as I said, the ones who have responsibility and the resources supposed to be leaders. That's what I mean. Like when we were just discussing the whole idea of.
Yeah.
If it was matriarchal during the first civilization, would our lives be better or would it have been a better version? Because women kind of had the resources. And
They still do in a lot of, let's say, African, rural
Not
African
really,
tribes. Because they think they do all the work. They do most of the work. They
it's
work.
not like being the labor worker does not actually mean
That's how I see the Lion King. That's what I mean.
No.
They're the laborers.
no,
you know what I
they're
mean?
not. Because if it were laborers, the final say of what they want as leader would not have been part of their choice. Because women can, the women can say no to the man and not reproduce. The women can say no to the leader and band together and kill him. He can't do the reverse.
Yeah, of course. I mean, you could say the same about.
The
like you said,
women can direct their kids, their cubs, to
Right.
do whatever they want. They teach them how to hunt, how to be humans, how to be like adult versions of themselves. That would not be like if you think of it as humans. Women don't have any say in any of those things.
Because they're not allowed
They
to
do-
organize.
Yes, they
Yeah.
cannot be. They cannot
They
have
can
a
have
say
just as
on
much
who
power
leads
as they
them.
organize.
They
That's it.
cannot dethrone
Yeah, of
a
course.
man if he's not worthy of them.
Fair.
Like there is no
Yeah.
system of they have a say or have a word on who leads them and who is a part of their community,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So that's what I mean. When it comes to lions, it's completely different from human beings
No, it's
because
I know, it has a difference, but I was still thinking that it's still the male is still associated.
I don't
with
think it has to
protecting
do with the
pride.
labor.
You
Like
know what I mean?
the leadership and labor are two very different things. So if you have the more
It's also
of
the king
labor,
that claims the territory, right?
Sure, it
Yeah.
does. But the claim of the children on its own is one part of resource.
Mhm.
And in lions, it's the women. They claim their children, basically.
To a certain extent, I think human women, I think, have a certain amount of power
No, but
over their
like-
own children.
No, but like, okay, so with the Harari book that I was reading, so he has a really a good understanding
Sapiens?
of... Yeah, the Sapiens, and they have three series of books.
I only know the
Sapien-
second one, the Homo Deus.
Homo Deus, Homo Sapien, the Sapien Malo Kaza. I think there were like 3 or 4
Oh, okay.
different books.
Yeah.
But anyway, so it starts as evolutionary standpoints and goes to
He was
what's
talking
going to
about
happen in
vulnerable
the
apes
next.
as matriarch.
Yeah,
In
yeah.
the book, yeah.
And so he has 4 series of books, and the last one is what is going to happen in the next 100 years. Or
Okay.
But anyway, so
But
he has
that-
this really
I
good
was thinking of
understanding
vulnerable
of
apes as matriarchal. When you ask me what animals.
Yeah, and now like so he has this really good understanding when it comes to what we were just talking about. So when the ideology of existence of like the matriarchal and patriarchal lifestyles kind of coexisted at one time, and there was this war that happened like 3,000 years after creation of Homo sapiens. There was this lineage of matriarchals and
Okay.
women taking care of the children, and men actually taking care of the protection.
Mm.
And so at some standpoint, we became
There's a standoff where.
we became sedentary human beings,
Okay.
and so the protection kind of went away.
Mm.
So the ideology he has was
advent of
men.
agriculture?
Yes, agriculture was created, and then so men lost their a need
What?
to matter.
Mm.
They're not like lions. Lions are okay being lazy, but men were not, because as humans, as you said, we need purpose. We need the reason to survive.
Yeah.
So that's when men kind of revoluted against women and took all the kids. So when we see of this pubertic, like, especially when men became they receive that time of puberty, where they have that time of puberty, and they have this rituals that are done in a lot of our communities and a lot of our civilization, that was created primarily to disengage mothers from male children. And that's when matriarchy kind of goes over, like, okay, I'm done with matriarchy. The lifestyle of a man is patriarchal, and I have to take over. So men actually created this lineage so that men, like men children or male children, kind of disengaged to respect their mothers. So they could be like, okay, now you're my servant, and now I'm a leader, because puberty and the rest of the male adults have put me in their own system.
Sort of a superior position.
Yes. So, and then the naming also started then, like that wartime.
Naming what?
The naming of children after
their
their dads.
fathers, okay.
Yeah, that started there as well, because women controlled their kids. So if their male kids grew up and they told them to do something, which is against the patriarchy or the adult male, they would do it.
Yeah.
But to get away from that, the property of land and property of kids were taken to the male side, because male or men did not have a purpose to live. So now the purpose is the owning of the plants, the owning of the land, and the owning of the kids.
Yeah.
So they would gain more power.
Yeah.
So it came of need not just to survive, which is the major need, but also to find purpose, because women have purpose.
Yeah.
It is built within them.
Yeah.
It's their uterus.
Yeah.
For survival, it was part of their nature to exist, to have a purpose to exist. It was to feed their
so
own,
they
right?
have purpose, like inherent
Built
purpose,
in them. Yes. So when it comes to, like, not the modern sense where like women can have other purposes, it's not just the uterus or their need to care for others.
Yeah.
It was actually part of nature where men were less in all perspective views.
Yeah.
Because women could have a lot of multiple partners. And then that's when the third thing happened. They started owning wives. Like, now one woman can only have sex with one man, to know that it is his kid, to ownership of the kid.
Yeah.
Before that, she could have sex with a lot of men, and they wouldn't know who the
Wouldn't
child
the
was.
woman as well, because it guarantees protection of her children.
No, because during the time, of course, but then it wouldn't benefit the men, because they wouldn't know which one was their kid, so they would protect everyone. But the idea of protection, as I told you, is dissolved now. Nobody needed protecting. They had a sedentary lifestyle. They created fire. They created fencing. They did not need to strive for safety.
They still, like you said, they're still territories, right?
Yes, but then
so they needed
the resources were abundant.
Yeah.
They did not need to fight with each
Not
other
with the more
to
kids
form
you have,
communities.
Because there's always more kids.
Yeah,
and then when
for the longest time. For the longest time, they still had abundant resources. They still had like small communities everywhere, but they were in different evolutionary standpoints in different parts of the realms of the earth. So they didn't really need that. But as I said, because of survival, they needed to adjust their lifestyle. Yeah. And what they did was, because women already had purpose within them, men had to create ideologic purposes. That's when the matriarchy, and that's when the first misogynistic
that also like, is another question, though,
systematic
if you remember the
formation was created. The first systematic formation was the patriarchal
hierarchy. Good. Also in the book, he asks, and he says there is no good answer to this. Is that how the men won? Remember, because he has theories, but there is
they won because of physical attributes and because they were involved in the safety part.
But in the book,
this is easily understood.
No, not
it's
necessarily.
Safety, so
not necessarily because
they form tools and they killed it with those tools.
No, that's what I mean.
That's what the war happened.
Because physical strength is not always a show. Because forget in the
It was
sense
the
of
only
sex
way
and gender.
during that time.
Because when you have different tribes, let me say, mixed genders, whatever. It's not always the taller and the stronger ones that win.
They have safety tools everywhere. Like
You know what I mean? So sometimes it's power of organization and power of engineering. That's usually what wins over.
not
Because on average,
on an evolutionary standpoint, that was not really a very well put together organization at the time. The very reason
because
was
you said it yourself, Alan, with the lion. I'm sorry, they can always band together and attack it bigger. So the question is not it's not just that they're bigger. It's somehow they seem to have organized much more better,
so
right?
The difference between animals and the lion's lineage and humans was, as I told you, men who are lion men or like male lions do not need a reason to exist, like to find a way to survive. Yeah. That's why that lineage works.
But that's what I mean. Like at the end of the day, I understand why they might have done it. But the question was how they won the fight.
Because they had safety tools.
Yeah, but that was discounted in the book. If you remember, Sapiens letters.
No, but the safety tools that they, in the evolutionary standpoint of time, has evolved was by men, because women did not need to have like any kind of fighting tools to be created. They don't need that.
So since the men had the weapons, they had more power.
They just killed them. The women that said no and said, okay, no, we're going to keep our kids, they just killed them and raped them. Like that, he speaks of, there is, by the way, like a written document, not written, but like there are like carved paintings.
Yes.
And historical like carved caves that shows the history of that, like 3,000 years. He actually depicted the timeline about 3,000 years after the modern day Homo sapien was created.
What's odd is that considering how you have so many tribes that are independent of each other, right? So many of them that evolved independent of each other throughout all the continents, is that there doesn't seem to be more, at least a few matriarchal tribes. You know what I mean?
There isn't, because the civilization, as I said, yes, the evolution has been.
You'd think at least a few of them would have a different trajectory, where there'd be,
because the nature of women to have babies is always equal and everywhere. Mm-hmm. They could be anywhere, but the ideology of the evolutionary standpoint, where men were safety givers and women were childbearers and child owners, is equal everywhere.
But the idea,
so the trajectory still works the same. Nothing else could have been different.
Because I think in some tribes, women were also hunters, right?
Yes, but
exactly. So you'd think in those tribes there's a higher chance of women also succeeding in the fight.
No, but like think of it that way. Like the ideology of
to defend themselves.
No, the mental perspective of women being priority, like childbearing and protecting and food gathering, and men actually being that safety mentality. That evolutionary standpoint did not just start like for 50 years. It went on for 3,000 years. Yeah. Their brains have been already eradicated to be male killing, women nurturing.
Were there tribes and civilizations where the women are also hunters?
No, but like it wasn't that much pronounced within the mental evolutionary life cycle, because they've already put that
so you're saying it's not just that it's inherent within the male and the females, within them, almost like the same way we have different bodies.
As well.
So you still think that applies today? If it's evolution, then it will still apply today, right?
Let me tell you this really amazing research.
So would it still apply today?
Of course. I'm telling you a research that was done.
No, I mean the evolution, the idea that men will always have that.
That's what So there's a research that was done in Johns Hopkins about 2-3 years ago, and that was talking about only children that started transgender therapy from female to male.
Children?
Yeah, children.
Is that legal?
If their parents say yes.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
So anyway, they started their therapy, their hormonal therapy, by the age of 4 or 5.
4 or 5?
Yes, they picked those kids.
Young, yeah.
They picked those kids, and they give them basically they picked them from the same kind of lifestyle, the same economic lifestyle, same countries that they lived in, their background and everything. And so the women who they get testosterone therapy, right? That's what they get by 3 or 4, and they followed them through their 20s.
Do babies have testosterone? I thought that comes after puberty. Not testosterone, but I thought men became more pronounced, the testosterone estrogen levels after puberty.
When
you give them testosterone at 5 years old?
Yes, because they have to evolve as men. The amount is small.
Yeah.
It gets really pronounced at puberty, but male have testosterone built in from their body.
I mean, females also have testosterone.
But the amount is completely different.
With boys, okay.
And then, so they give them the appropriate amount that the male, the normal, biological male are getting. So they started at 3 years. The other kids the same as 3 years. Those are biologically male. Yeah. And these were later on became male, like they're transgender.
Trans male.
So by the time they're 20, they basically gave them this subconscious and conscious examinations to see if they are inherently aggressive, because they had the same amount of testosterone hormone. And it was a completely different situation.
So testosterone is not the only factor.
It's not at all. There are definitely other factors that are going on. But because they are inherently biologically male, it wasn't any different. It was like they're both equally aggressive. The biological males were not more aggressive at all. You know what I mean?
So they're equally aggressive?
They're equally aggressive.
So testosterone is the important factor?
Yes, but it was not the same thing.
Okay.
But they're equal because the testosterone works, but it has nothing to do with evolutionary standpoint. Yeah. Yes, the hormones it's not nature. It's the hormones, right? But like you would think, okay, if they had natural. Yeah, you would think the natural male with the evolutionary lifestyles and who are raised out males would be more aggressive. But it was not.
In the modern sense, though, would you say that males are aggressive?
Yes, of course.
It depends how they're raised, I think. Because I've also met a lot of aggressive women. Because as long as you come from a certain type of, it depends how you parent. Because if you come from an abusive household, or I'm not saying all abuse kids are aggressive, but at the same time, a lot of my friends I wouldn't say are aggressive males. You know what I mean?
I mean, like I have equally male and female friends. Trust me, the males are so much more aggressive than women.
Yeah.
It's not even no. That's what I mean, especially like males should not be leaders.
No, I agree.
Like, I don't think
I'm not saying they're equal amount. Of course, men are.
I'm not going to be like biased to say. I'm not going to be biased to say women should lead everything.
But I don't think it's in the traditional sense. I don't think men are as aggressive, or there isn't that sense, because the modern world that stereotypism is gone, and the idea that men have to be aggressive and you have to bully and you have to fight or whatever, that sense. A lot of modern men have never been into fights. I've never been in fights at all.
I mean, like it doesn't actually have to be physical kind of aggression. It could just be
then if we're talking about
ideological aggression
with
too.
that sense, I think men and women are equally aggressive. Ideological and
not at all.
I really
not
think
at all.
so.
Because let's just easily think about it. Like, so
because the idea that women are timid, I think does not apply. Maybe for Ethiopian women, because they don't they seem slightly bit more aggressive with voicing their opinions.
The best way to talk about this is the idea of leadership. Like what we would think in general are like good leaders. Good leaders are really patient. Actual good leaders.
Yeah.
Are very
the ideal leaders.
Calm and collected, not aggressive at all. Yeah. Like. They are usually collective forming, not just like up front, but like work together.
Yeah, organized. They're good at organizing.
In the back, forcing people towards the front, right? Not the fronts, right? And leading people in.
Yeah. And empathy, high on empathy. That's what's lacking, I think, with a lot of
that is
genetically
a character of women. Like the things that I just described, the 4 things that I just described, are exactly what women are. Like, look at women when they raise kids. No, they're so patient. I agree.
So women, when it comes to their kids, I fully agree. Everything that you described applies to women when it comes to their kids or family in general. Women are very protective,
But isn't that what life is? It starts off as a family.
But would I say that's what I mean? Like, but would I apply that just because she's a woman that she'd also be as empathetic to different people and everybody as she is to her kids? So different, because that's what I mean by the stereotypes seem to have changed. Because stereotypically what you described is right. The women of the past, the whole being sensitive and understanding, and men being just brutes or dumb and who just want to fight or aggressive. But in the modern sense, it feels like if you're chatting with a person online, you might not even guess their gender. You might not even understand. You might not know their gender. You know what I mean? Because a lot of like I said,
I think as a male, you would think that, because you would think, oh yes, I've seen a difference in what has happened with my grandfather or my great grandfather to the
exactly, and
comparison
it's
to me.
very different.
It's
yeah.
not the
So
same.
I mean-
Like you'd think it wouldn't be the same, but it's quite the same.
But there's definitely
There are some
but there's
strides
softening
going
of the
there.
stereotype, though. Wouldn't you say? A lot of.
There is a small maybe difference there, but trust me when I tell you this, it is quite the same with the like.
From your point of view.
Yes, it's very glacial change.
Yeah?
Very glacial change. Like there are some changes, but it's like it's not at all at all there, because in the ideological perspective of view,
Yeah.
still people think of
But at the heart of it.
confident, conceited people as more of a leader. Like there's this book I read, a very very interesting book by this really well-known psychologist. I think the title was why most leaders are incompetent men.
Okay.
That's like, why do we have leaders that are incompetent men? So that book's like particularly talks about she did a study in 4 different countries with 4 different lifestyles,
Yeah.
and all of them who work in it, she did a research on employers and employees, and they say about 80% of them were not satisfied with their leaders.
Yeah.
And among that 80% of them, about 90% of them were men.
Yeah. Generally, not just the incompetent
Yeah.
ones, but leaders in general are men. You know, on
So
average,
why do you think
statistics-wise.
there is a change if
No,
what the
no,
talk is
I'm not-
aggression, the talk is
I'm not saying
overconfidence?
there's a change in actual the situation where yes, sexism absolutely exists, and it's
No,
a
but
patriarchy.
not just
I agree.
sexism, but
But I was
See,
talking about the
there's a
ancient
difference
stereotype
between-
of aggressive and but
there's a difference
adding that,
between
then I want
freedom
to say, I do
of
agree
speech
with
and
you.
freedom of being
I
heard.
do agree with you with saying that I think a matriarchal society would be better.
It would
But at the end of the day, it's mostly it's based on the at this point it's hypothetical. Because we don't
I
really
don't
know.
think it's
We've never
hypothetical.
really seen it happen. You know what I mean?
No, I
Because
mean,
they might be
well,
the same.
Of course it is, but
Because
I
I
think
feel
it's
like it's also based on the sort of sexist stereotypes in a way. Because you know how
it's not.
you know how men say "Lamsari do" why if they when women ran for presidency or whatever, they'd say they're too weak to rule. You know that in itself is very sexist. You know what I mean?
sure, but
So the idea that they're fundamentally different, I think, is sexist because a female leader might be as crazy as any other. You can have a
but I
female Hitler. You know what I mean? The idea
we
that a
have
woman could never
examples.
do that, I think, is sexist.
We
you know
have
what I mean?
examples of those now. Maybe not as pronounced, but look at a lot of the Scandinavian countries. Like, you do know, like, the primary history of female leadership in Scandinavian countries was because of a combination of food scarcity during World War II, plus a lot of their men died.
but wouldn't you say it's still patriarchal?
It's not.
Because here's the thing, yeah,
It's not.
a lot of their prime
I'm
ministers.
Four of the Scandinavian countries are equally leadered in the same perspective as men and women.
I know from what I heard, the most representation in parliament, because that's the main point of government. It's not the legislative. It's not the executive. It's legislative is the parliament. I meant president and a prime minister is not as powerful as the parliament. The most representation, the highest ratio of men to
like,
women,
search
I
it
know,
right now.
I heard is Rwanda. The
Finland,
highest ratio.
I will show you. Finland has even more women in parliament than men.
Let's check it. Yeah.
The research that I was doing yesterday,
Yeah.
it was saying that.
Because I know they have a lot of Scandinavian countries have women presidents and prime ministers.
No, not just the people
Yeah.
in leadership.
That's what I mean. Exactly. I was talking about parliament.
The actual
Yeah.
parliament.
Yeah.
Like as like ministers and like part of the Senate. You know,
Exactly.
that's
Representation, equal
Yeah.
representation. Yeah.
But like, I mean, like you can see when a lot of the idea process or the decision process is equal for men and women, just the country just becomes a better version of itself.
Yeah,
And you can easily say that, like, see that in a
I agree,
lot of
because-
these exemplary countries.
Because
as
when we
well.
talk about this issues of men and women, we're talking about 50% of the population. It's a big number. You know what I mean? If 50% of your population is unhappy or unproductive, the country's going to suffer.
Yeah.
Which is why it's not even a minority.
But then
This is half the population.
it says 47% are female.
In Finland?
Women as members of parliament. It says 47 members of the current Finnish parliament are women. I'm not like, and not like it genuinely shows that like nowadays when you see that equality going through, it is for the betterment, but like our selfish gene is always there. Like that's
Yeah, I mean,
like it's just so
inherent.
annoying to see, especially not like in a country basis as well.
Mhm.
It's very sad for me to say, like, a lot of the men that I went to school with, a lot of the men that had the same lifestyle as me, my brother, somebody like in my family who knows this is the right path, but still would say, like, you know, he would normalize, oh yes, she could go to school with me, or she could have the same rights as me as an employee.
Yeah.
But then when he gets married, he'd be like, I won't take care of the child.
Yeah, of course. I mean,
Or-
there is that.
I won't make the food in the house, or something like that. And that's when they put that, like, I'm a man figure in there.
Yeah.
Which, like, most of them, it's not from ignorance, but it's from selfishness.
Yeah.
And we always fight our selfish genes to
Yeah.
be the better versions of ourselves. And men, I think, are weak fighting their selfishness.
Yeah, because
Because, you know, you guys are so, like, phallic, that...
sorry to interrupt. Right? Rwanda apparently is the highest because it has 61%
Oh, okay.
women.
So don't
It's
hire.
really high, yeah. Gun you to be because Rwanda, I'm guessing, is not in action. Maybe might not be.
Yeah.
As into it.
It
So you were saying, sorry. So you were saying in practice,
In
people
practice.
might speak some stuff, but they.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, like, for men on a daily basis that I see, especially with countries with a very strong cultural and religious basis, it's even worse because
Absolutely.
you know
Religious especially.
yeah, the religion already gives you that extensive way of say. Like, I think that's why a lot of Ethiopian men are just still very highly Christian or highly Muslim,
Yeah.
because it's just
I think
really helpful.
From
Even if you don't believe, really,
Yeah.
it's so helpful to be Christian as a man in Ethiopia.
almost immediately you notice that most of these countries, even in Oram.
Yeah.
As soon as a certain society or certain tribe leaves religion, decides religion not working for us, they become almost immediately
Yeah, like
sort of
condemn
equal
their
based.
crazy.
You know, they condemn sexism and they become, because they realize, because when you look at it logically, you're talking about 50% of the population. We should share our workload and work together, and they should have
so much
representation.
easier.
So Arambound is famous for its very progressive
Yeah.
work towards, you know, how men work with traditionally women own roles.
Yeah.
And women actually do the same thing. They share everything equally. And they say it also, I think a lot of tribes before, even in Africa, before the missionaries came, before Christianity came over, there was a lot of fairness. It was way better in terms of sexism.
Yeah.
Because you share the...
Yeah, that's one of
load.
the really sad things for me, as an Ethiopian trying to teach the ideas of the equality of women or the respect or same rights of women to men. It is so hard to do it in a religious outpost.
can't.
Like, how can I say your wife and you have exactly the same roles
Yeah.
as humans
Yeah.
in your marriage, while thinking they're both Christian, they're both Muslim? That would never work, right?
Yeah, it's
So-
how they're raised. They think it's the way it's supposed to be. It's the way
Yeah.
God intended it. So it's really hard to demolish that idea.
Yes, and then if you want to have like that kind of lifestyle with a person that's generically Ethiopian, they would definitely like aggressively be against you if you ever try to portray
even
your
any
rights to
religious
that
country.
person.
It's not just Ethiopia, I'd say, or any super religious country, monotheistic kind of country.
Yeah.
America, Russia, to a certain extent, I think.
Yeah,
It depends.
a lot
You
of
mean,
the, like,
I guess the
housewives,
liberals,
man.
yeah. I
In
mean,
in the red states, a lot of them are
what
still
you
housewives.
said applies to
highly
what you
Christian.
said about men, how they talk about, you know, equality or whatever, and the action they're different. That applies to women as well, because there's a lot of women that are also all for equality. They love to say it, but at the end of the day, I mean, if you have ever seen your Trump vote, you know, Trump rallies, like interviews, because there's a lot of women, a lot of women as well, right? And they ask him, you know, about why she would vote for him, even though of all things he said, you know. But at the end of the day, they still think he's kind of the, you know, that's how a man should be type of attitude. A lot of them, that's what they say. A lot of the women, you know, because they did come
the
from that
religious
kind
point
of.
of view,
That's what I
though.
mean, exactly, yeah. Because I remember in an interview last, they asked her why would you vote for Hillary, and said a woman would make a terrible president.
Yeah,
It's a
because,
man's
you
job.
know,
A
it's
woman saying
religious.
that. That's what I mean. Like, but if you asked her, do you believe in equality? She'd probably say she's a feminist. You know what I mean? But in action, at the heart of it, because how she's raised, you know, in religion, and
Yeah.
even at the beginning, like the first chapter of the Bible was the whole Adam was bored, so he created a woman to entertain him. Is very sexist idea. You know? The idea that.
mean, the first, let's say, the first 10 or 15 pages will already tell you was written by a man. Like, I swear to you, like, if you say, there's this really amazing friend of mine that always says this, like, read the Bible as if God was the devil. and then you would understand everything. Like if you read the Bible as a fiction where the villain is God.
Yeah.
Like think your brain is saying the villain is God.
Yeah,
and you read it like a fiction, you would understand.
There was
you would
monk,
understand that's a guy.
Apparently,
right there.
there was a monk in the medieval era that I can't find his name. I was reading about him, but and I was trying to find it, but I couldn't remember his name. But apparently, he wrote a version. He wrote his point of view was that what if the villain had won? What if Satan, the battle against Satan and God? What if Satan won? It's not like he's going to tell you he's the evil and that he defeated the good. He would make it look like he's the good. So his idea is, what if the God we believe in is actually the villain that won?
Yeah.
And Satan was all about independence.
There is a whole religion called
needless
Satanists.
to say, he was.
You do know that, right?
Yeah, of course. The whole belief is individualism.
Their whole belief is like
It's not actual belief in
respect
Satan.
human beings.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And but you hear
They have
like
Ten Commandments.
Satanists and
They
you're
have
like
10 commandments that say stuff like, I think number one is don't be an idiot or something like that.
Yeah.
Like, think for yourself. So, but it's not surprising in the modern era to think like that. But back then, imagine being a monk and realizing, hey man, what if God is full of shit? He probably got killed for it, but still, it was an interesting idea.
Yeah, but like even the whole idea of especially the Old Testament one. The Old Testament God was definitely a villain. Come on, like it was genuinely written that like you do something, I'm gonna get killed.
Exactly. I mean,
go against me and you're dead.
When you think about it, God only exists in the Old Testament because New Testament is just Jesus. New Testament is literally the Jesus' story. God is not really represented. It's Jesus' point of view about how he's the Son of God. And there is no big. God doesn't come down in the New Testament. It's Jesus doing miracles.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's Jesus, people raising from the dead, whatever. God doesn't really exist in the New Testament. That's why I guess it seems a bit more quieter and peaceful.
And
but when God does shit, he
he's gonna kill us all.
He just fucks everything up.
He comes to kill us all.
He doesn't give a fuck.
No, but like in the New Testament, like Exodus and everything.
When he comes
he's
back,
coming to kill us all now. But it's really funny. But not just that, by the way. In Quran, I read the Quran when I was in college.
The whole thing.
The whole thing, actually. It was really hard though. Because
yeah,
it's not the same like easily written one. I read the Amharic version.
Sort of dense.
It's very dense. It's very hard to understand. So like with every kind of chapter, I had to go and ask people, what does this actually mean?
Yeah.
But
they gave you satisfactory answers?
It's some really good answers they have. It's a much broader sense, by the way. Like Christianity is very compacted and very small, like lineage of wrong and right.
Yeah.
When it comes, like I was so surprised, like the Quran actually accepts Christianity and accepts pagans and accepts atheists and accepts all sorts of other religion. Yeah. I did not know this. Like I always thought it was just an extremist form of, because
that is how it's presented.
Yes,
that's
it's always presented in the Western media, and like that misconception is always there. And then, but the one thing that I really was sad about was there is only one woman that is always that's talked about, and it's Maryam. That's Jesus is a mother, and she has like one chapter, and there's nothing else. There's no story of a woman in the Quran at all, except for like. Yeah. I asked the teachers why, like, isn't a woman part of Muslim history? Yeah. And they were like, no, it's more or less a story of both sexes. It talks about like as a they, not as a he or she. Yeah. Okay. But I don't think so, because the Amharic interpretation, all of this says like he continuously. Yeah. So like with a lot of the religions that I see nowadays, even the modern day, like Scientology. Scientology is the like it's definitely like
can we even
patriarchal.
Consider that a religion? That's my question. Scientology, isn't
it's organized
so
beliefs,
blatant? Yeah, but so are cults, right? So are most cults. Isn't it just a scam? Does a religion in modern day that blatantly and openly tells its followers that you level up only by paying a certain amount, and not by any other action or belief? Isn't that a clear? Isn't
that Christianity?
No, at least Christianity has some other bullshit to kind of cover it up. You know what I mean?
But it's the same thing. Like, you deconstruct all the bullshit, and the same thing. Like
that's isn't it such? I feel like
you see it in Protestant church now. Like they would come to your house if you pay them a certain money.
There's cons, of course. But I feel like it doesn't represent the whole church, because
at least they can say, oh, that's just, this isn't that. It's just a little church. It's the little neighborhood church that do that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Scientology is the organization from the head of us, from the top. This is how it works. This is the whole organization, right? Where you pay to level up, and you don't level up unless you pay.
But think of Christianity. Like, say, Christianity says you can, at any point in life, go to the church and say, I have done wrong.
Sinned. Yeah.
I have sinned. Like, please, like, take away all of my sins from this point on. And go back and be exactly the same as a poor person who has absolutely done nothing wrong, who's been praying the same way. You would be exactly the same level as that person.
No, it's...
How is that at all fair?
But it's not fair.
To a person who just killed and pillaged and took away from others and just go and
ridiculous.
say, I am sorry.
But at least we can say that was some ancient shit. You know what I mean? That's stupid because it's ancient shit. And then we're better than that now. You know what I mean? We're better than that.
How is Christianity ever better? Because
no.
it's
I mean,
we're
better in the sense that at least we know.
If it is a Christian person, it's never
and
better.
That's why I'm saying modern atheists can say, I understand how Christianity is stupid. It's ancient. I understand how Islam might have some weaknesses and Judaism has weaknesses. Scientology came about in the 20th century, right? It was invented. It wasn't derived from. It was invented from scratch in a time penicillin existed and all TVs
they
existed,
deconstructed
right?
all the bullshit and just said it's capitalistic religion.
Yeah, exactly. With
that's so clear.
And
yes.
Titans and whatever they call it.
Like, that's so clear.
But I feel like
it's
at this stage, we have enough. It's hard enough getting rid of the religions that we dragged from ancient time. Because it's hard enough, right? Shouldn't we just ban new religions? We don't want to add to the problem. So. That's what I mean by if Christianity was invented now, we'd know it's a con.
But
you know what I mean?
With the whole
but
ideology,
we know it's a con. Why do we allow it?
Yeah, the need to unite is nature is somewhat like.
But here's the thing: uniting against some other cause, such as an economic system or science, it's misunderstood. But it starts from a good place because science needs to exist. People just misunderstand it. Economic systems need to exist. People exaggerate it, right?
Yeah.
But somebody, a science fiction writer, coming up with religion to make money. I feel like that should be legal somehow. I don't know. Like he's like taking advantage of the whole tax. The religious groups can't get taxed, and it feels like a con in the modern era. Because then anybody could just get up and start writing fiction and say it's a religion.
Have you seen *Handmaid's Tale*?
No, I plan to.
Yes. Right? So I don't want to wait. Like I don't want to ruin it for you, but like the author actually created a religion. Which was
for the fiction of
the fictional
world. Okay.
World. She created an actual religion, and it was just like Protestant or Lutheran.
So it
came from Christianity,
okay.
But it was just like a nice form of Christianity. Like they took the parts that they needed and made into a new version.
Yes.
And it's so I think it's that one is the worst one nowadays because. In order to still have a sense of meaning, we always kind of take away the parts that like there's modernized version of us or need-based version of us, and then create another religion. I think that's how Scientology came as well, because Christianity has this capitalistic way of giving things, but with a very old sense of the old words.
It's so broad. Because we cannot really distill it from one thing.
That's an older version, and everything has been
Christianity
edited down.
was not invented by a person. You know
but it was edited down so much.
Course. Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, it was adapted and
that's
sort of
how Scientology was created, because Scientology is
one man.
Yes, but he created those things because he was like, okay, there's so many delusional religions there.
I might as well have my own.
Yes, created from way back. We don't even know if some of them are true or not.
Oh, no,
let's just create a very
religions
nice.
Like that existed, but like the what do they call it? The flying spaghetti monster. You've heard of that? Huh?
What?
It's an actual religion.
A spaghetti monster.
Yeah, I think it's called the
flying
followers?
Spaghetti monster.
I'm sure about the spaghetti monster part. I think it's called the flying spaghetti monster part.
It has followers?
Yeah, it has followers to show. The reason it was created was sarcastically.
Oh,
because you know how, as long as you have a certain number of people, it can be a religion, right? The government has to recognize it.
Yeah.
And then a bunch of people, atheists, thought, so anybody could, because you see Scientology, you see whatever, and they're like, okay, we're going to create our religion. We're going to create the most fucking ridiculous religion ever, and you're going to respect it. And then they created the flying spaghetti monster, and then atheists just started joining, just for fun. And it's just the most hilarious religion.
It actually became a religion.
It's a religion, but no, but you follow it sarcastically. But the government has to respect it.
I mean,
But
crazy
Ron Hubbard did that did that whole sarcastic thing except to make money.
Yeah.
Because have you ever heard of their stories about aliens and
Yeah, they have the crazy stories.
Yeah, and
they
then
have,
they're completely against the idea of chemical imbalance, and they're against psychiatry, for instance. They're absolutely against it. They pick it against it because randomly Hubbard just thought that that's pseudoscience, and then you have thousands of people all of a sudden saying it's fake, and guilt tripping people that take the stuff that they need. They need it, don't we? That we.
Can you imagine like people with schizophrenia and like,
they need it? That's what I'm saying.
They need those medications to survive.
And then they guilt trip them. They call them out on it.
Yeah, I mean, like it's so crazy to me nowadays. Like the whole idea behind religion is.
I heard that in Germany it was considered not. It's not considered. It's not taken as a religion by the government. It's considered some sort of cult. Scientology.
Of course.
It's not taken seriously.
That's a good idea.
They should. That's what I'm saying. The government should have
like a limited things.
I get
but
the
if
whole
you start
state.
limiting things, there's so much you could do.
Because here's the thing. Because the limit does not apply. I get it. Because then you'd say that, what about freedom of religion or whatever?
Yeah.
But the reason for the limit, I say, is because the whole state and religion separation, right? Which gives religion a lot of power. A lot of it. The whole idea of, forget taxation, which if I believe in it, I can do this type of logic under it.
Yeah.
So people can take advantage of that power.
Yeah.
Which is why you need to put religion under the state. It has to be.
Yeah.
The whole forget separation.
Like the Christian or the religious people with money are going to lobby for the rights that are going to benefit their beliefs, right?
Yeah, and they have the power. But here's the thing: what if atheists gathered and then they said our religion? We created a religion and said our religion requires us to take ecstasy and to party like crazy to electronic music. That's how we get close to our God.
Yeah.
Shouldn't they at least not arrest us in our churches when we party with ecstasy?
That has already been
illegalized,
illegalized though.
It doesn't matter. Because here's the thing though. I think religion gives them. Let me give you an example. Polygamy, marrying more than it's in the constitution. It's illegal, right?
Yeah.
But even in Ethiopia, if I'm a Muslim, I have a loophole where I can marry more than one woman, because the whole separation of state and religion thing.
Yeah.
So that's what I meant by it gives them a lot of power, where I can actually kind of bypass the constitution.
But then if we say that's
if I
like
can
true for
bypass the
everything
Constitution.
nowadays, because
Either we have to limit religion, which will
should.
take away the rights of
Absolutely should.
secularism, or if we do limit, like there is going to be
I don't
a
think it takes
question
away
of-
from secularism. I think if we put religion under secularism, it gives secularism the ultimate power.
But then
'Cause
religious
religion was
people
on
will
top-
have a say in
Yeah,
this.
that's the problem. There are
Yes.
too many, man. There are too fucking many.
And then like it's
They're killing
always
you.
crazy.
They will fight to
We're
the
just
death,
gonna go
but
back to
yeah.
the days. Like this is one of the do you really think we would probably have a reasonable Ethiopian society without religion? Like do you
Absolutely.
think one point in life there would be like a religiously unbiased government? Or a religiously
That is a different question.
The community,
Do I think it will happen?
Mm.
Not in our lifetime. Maybe not even in a long, long time. Good.
But,
Do I think that we can
Ethiopianism is so
do I think we can find meaning without
hand
it?
in
Yes.
hand with religion.
It is. But do I think we can find meaning without it? I think we can.
as a community, I don't think so.
Because you know what I realized that the Ethiopia we hear about, because people always seem to confuse this. Modern Ethiopians think that the Ethiopia we're proud of is the same, right? This is the Ethiopia we're proud of. When they hear about stuff and they're like, yeah, we're Ethiopians. We've done this one. That. I realized when you read about the ancient Ethiopians, we couldn't be any more different. We were so different. Because the idea of, for instance, Muhammad, the history of Islam, that also Muhammad, he was pursued before he started. He had a following. He was pursued because of his crazy beliefs. Mm-hmm. Nobody would welcome him. At the time, when you're questioning religion, you might as well be absolutely crazy. You might as well. I can't even give a modern example because there's nobody that crazy, right?
Yeah.
They're just trying to kill him. And then he ended up in Ethiopia, and Ethiopia was the only country that was open-minded enough to think, you can believe whatever you want.
So you think it's more extremist now than
Absolutely, is considering the fact
so
that
we're getting worse. You're saying it's basically getting worse.
Because think about it, the idea that Ethiopia back
That's
then,
very sad.
the idea that Ethiopia back then welcomed anybody, right, with a different religion laws, which is out of the question at the time. That's like welcoming. Imagine if LGBTQ people were chased out of the entire world. The Ethiopians were like, "Oh, you're welcome here," which is the opposite of what Ethiopians are now, right?
Of course.
So at the time, that's what it was historically, right?
I think it has to do with the modern westernized religion, or
And
the
like,
modern westernized Christianity.
We became these
the new version
we
of
became these
Christianity.
closed-minded, crazy
Yeah.
sons of bitches, and we're not even talking about the same Ethiopia when we say we're proud of Ethiopia. They would be ashamed of us, I think. Because it
But
seems
then,
like such a progressive time. Because if they really were welcoming of outsider ideas and whatever, and anything goes.
Yeah.
You know, because it was like a trading hub, and you meet all, you know, there's
Yeah, there
different
was
ideas
many
used to
kinds
kind
of
of meet in the middle,
religions
right?
and many kinds of
So it's not,
lifestyles there.
Ethiopia is the opposite of what it was then. Because now we are the most closed mind. We don't even allow Kenyans. You know, like, oh, look at that black man. You know,
What?
we don't even like, it's
the
insane.
ethnicities, our
Yeah,
own
ethnicities.
ethnicities now, like,
It's like,
you know,
yeah,
like-
exactly. It's insane. We don't even call like a Hamid of people, like the southern or the western Ethiopians. Also, we don't see them as Ethiopians.
I mean,
So aren't we so ridiculously different from where we were?
but like, I think maybe the fact that like the idea of colonialism has not affected us that much is, I think, very wrong. It has like indirectly affected us, but in the worst way
Yeah.
possible,
Terrible.
because we
It's
take
fucked us
away
up.
the
It's
worst
fucked us
parts of that westernized religion and culture and all that.
And then we added a lot of pride to it.
Yeah,
We're like,
which
"Oh,
is
we didn't
really
get caught out."
stupid, because the idea of putting a wrong information within you, like something that is religious, because
Yeah,
religious
absolutely.
is like, it doesn't need reason. Like,
it's about we're done.
I see people like, which is really surprising to me. I see people who are like highly religious, who are like amazingly Christian, amazingly Muslim, and they're like respectful, go to church all the time, like love God, and then you hear like, that guy's gay, and they're like, okay, I'm gonna go and fuck him up, I'm gonna kill him,
Yeah.
like, come throw stones at him, like, let's just like castrate him
Yeah,
and cut him into
absolutely.
pieces. Like, what the
That's what I
hell
mean, there
thought
is- we're
process
so-
goes into a person's mind to be highly religious and highly like
No.
like murderous at the same time?
I think the religious people are way worse in Ethiopia specifically.
Yes, that's what I
Because
mean.
they cast stones them. They're so judgmental about everything. You know?
I mean,
The idea that you live in a country where the ethnic-based violence, people are murdered left and right, just a few kilometers out of town, Russell. And the idea of, as soon as they heard, remember there was a gay or LGBT on tour
yeah.
that was gonna pass
You
through
know,
Ethiopia,
you-
and everybody lost their minds. Do you remember
It
that?
was the
They lost
craziest-
it. This is
they went to-
Christian.
was
Like
it
this
Lalibela or
is
something?
Ethiopia. Yeah, this is, you can't pass through it. Like this is. If what do you mean? You can't even claim religion at this point, because if God came down, Ethiopia would be one of the places that this is like Sodom and Gomorrah. You know what I mean? This is the
It's
worst
like
place
the
to be.
craziest place to go. And then like the really, really sad, I think, dangerous thing that is happening to Ethiopians now is the disengagement between what they think they are and what they actually are. Like, it is so disengaged.
Yeah.
And then like there's this idea where Ethiopians are generally like hospitable,
Which came from back
generous,
then,
yeah,
which
that
exists.
generous, that like patriotic,
Yeah.
self-loving, hardworking people. And then like, unless you are like, we will respect you unless you are gay. We'll respect you unless you are a woman. We'll respect you unless you are.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Wouldn't you say it's worse to be atheist than gay in Ethiopia?
Of course.
I think so. It's way worse, right?
Yes.
Because imagine in the sense, with an example of a celebrity, right? Somebody people like, and he's a musician, people love him. Which would fuck up his career more? If he said he's gay, or if he said he doesn't believe in God? God does not exist. I think that is more unforgivable.
No, I don't.
I really
The
think.
gay thing is.
I personally think, because here's the
Gay
thing. You know what I
thing
think
is
would happen?
It's a triggering word for people.
No, I know, but I
Even
think.
the Amharic version of it is so vulgar to even
good,
to say about it.
Personally, I think that if somebody said he was gay, they just assume Satan. Because they can always kind of.
if
Because
a person says I'm an atheist, they would think, oh, he's damaged.
No, not.
He's traumatized.
Because
like God has
not atheist.
like
not
forsaken
not
him.
the word atheist. Imagine describing that in America, saying Xavier yellow. That is the most offensive thing you can say to
The
people.
whole
That is so
ideology.
offensive to people.
If you say Xavier Yellem,
Yeah.
you know, people like who are suffering,
Mhm.
who like lost their parents, who lost their loved one, who say Xavier Yellem,
Alright,
in
in a moment of emotion, yeah, in a
no,
mo-
but like that's how they equipped it with a person who's even sane and like logically would say that to you. They would just say, oh, you're misunderstood, you've been traumatized all your life, like we'll pray for you,
Yeah.
and it will come back, the spirit will be, but come on, the day you say I like men, the automatic thinking is you're a pervert.
I take it back. Yeah, probably.
Yes,
yeah.
the second
That
thing is
pervert.
you're
Yeah,
a pedophile.
No, perversion
like
is
gay
allowed in
means
Ethiopia
gay.
compared to being gay. Perversion is allowed in Russia.
No, even gay is
Because you
equal
have
to-
old dudes that are attracted to 13-years-olds. That is better than the dudes attracted to men. Yeah.
Gay is equal to like basically pedophile.
Getting stoned, yeah.
No,
rapist.
That's the same
Rapist,
thing.
pedophile.
Pedophile, rapist.
Yeah,
that's
absolutely,
exactly like that's an equal thing.
Yeah, immediately. That's what it's gonna happen.
That's a completely different thing now. Like a person saying I like men who like me back is not understood here. Like,
yeah, of course, because he's the only one, so he's gonna have to rape.
Yes, like this is the only idea. And then like as when I was working in Amanuel, and there were like some patients. I mean, I can't talk about the actual things because like confidentiality and all that. But like there were some cases where they were like, oh yes, I was like raped by this man, and now I'm gay.
Yeah, there's that.
Which is that misconception because the society tells them, okay, like if you've been raped by men, that's how
there
gay
seems
men
to be
come
this
into
werewolf type of thing. When you get bit by a
like
werewolf, you change
vampires.
into what?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is like what the society says. Okay, now you're broken.
That's how it happens.
Yes, but that's how gay people have been created.
Yeah. Especially when Ethiopians come back from America, I'm sorry, and then he's like, oh, they changed the type of attitude.
Yeah,
like they got to him, they bit him, and he changed.
Which is the big, really big misconception here, and even that misconception has led into this ideology of. If I am a gay guy who is Ethiopian, I'm going to rape kind of thing. You know, like it's vice versa now, because there are no communities or lifestyles. So there's this hidden ground, and you see that hidden mentality of that it's changing into perversion and bad thoughts and being isolated, and then finally seeing it as a mental disease where you have to go and rape.
Honestly, I don't see it improving anytime soon. Because we have way worse human marginalizations or because we judge people based on we're fighting to convince people not to hate people based on ethnicity, not to be sexist at all, which are way higher on the list. So the idea of getting equal rights for the LGBT people is I think it's not even going to happen in our lifetime.
Let's think about it. If you can convince an Ethiopian man that LGBTQ people have rights and that they are humans, do you think it would be hard for you to say a woman's right is equal or another ethnic background person is equal as you?
I really don't know how to convince. I don't even know how to approach it.
That's where we should start. Like
I don't even know how to approach
like the whole idea of normalization.
No, here's the thing. I don't even know. I don't mean me personally, but I don't think there's any way to approach. Because here's the thing. I'm sorry, protesting, picketing with signs. Gay people coming out, and I think it's going to make people way more aggressive. They're going to beat the shit out of. Forget Ethiopia, Russia. They do that in Russia, also, which is a way more developed country, right? That's what I mean. Like there isn't even a way to approach it at this point, because we have way bigger problems. And I'm not saying let's not approach it. It just seems like the only time I've ever seen Ethiopians who were homophobic who became more accepting is if they moved. To the US or somewhere. Yeah, like a friend of mine who moved to Europe, Scandinavia, because he used to be so homophobic.
Yeah, it's illegal to do anything against them.
It's not just that it was illegal. What I think happens is that because with some people I hear they move and then they meet people, they become friends with all sorts of people, right? And they're friends. You're already friends. You know them as a person. And then when you find out she might be lesbian or he's gay, and then you understand it's not just some sort of weird.
Normal people
they're just perfectly normal, friendly. They're just like everybody else. They might be dicks. They might be friendly.
Do you think if
and
one
then
person here
something clicks,
had that say they've known their friend from childhood, and at some point in their life they'd be like in their 30s or 40s, they'd tell them
not everybody, but I think a lot of people. Because here's the thing: if a homophobic person, you have his best friend who he's known him for 15 years or whatever. And then he finds out he's not going to automatically, change what he thinks about him. They're friends. There's no way. Because they would have a conversation. That's what I think happens with a lot of Ethiopians. They move and they sort of understand that it's not some sort of weird
I had an experience like this when I was in 7th grade, I remember. I had like this summer school. And it was at School of Tomorrow or Magic Art with some private school, and I had a friend of mine, and there were like 4 of us. We just met because like summer school you don't know, and then you just meet there, and then so we were like friends for 2 months, and before the end of the summer, I thought it was a girl, and then they actually told me they're like I'm actually a guy, and I cross dress, and this is who I am.
So he doesn't want to be a woman; he just wants to cross dress.
No, he wants to be a woman, but he can't do the sex change yet.
Yeah.
But I can't call him a he now, but she identifies as a she now.
Okay, so he wants to be she.
So she looks like a woman, everything, like the way she dresses and everything. And then even the idea of like hiding out that ideology and not being comfortable enough to talk about this, I kind of felt really bad, because like I feel like she has that, like, I'm on the inside I'm a certain kind of thing, but on the outside I'm always going to do that. And then like she was born another sex, but then when she goes back home, how does that work? Like, do they consider her as a girl now? That understanding as an Ethiopian lifestyle, so hard.
Transgenderism also, it's its own different issue, completely different issue. I think that in Ethiopia, transgenderism might have it a little better to be accepted than
because they wouldn't know what was happening to you, right?
Yeah, because I think
if you never told them I don't, like, you never told them I used to be a man, like, just remain a woman. Or
no, even if they did, I think, because, or like you said, it's the word, you know, gay or lesbian. It's like it's a trigger, right? They immediately think, oh, you're or whatever.
But this ideology has been there. By the way, like, I'm sorry, I have to interject. Like, my grandfather used to tell me about a friend of his or a community person. Yeah, and my mother had a friend.
But they don't talk about it here.
No, but like my mother had a friend, a childhood friend, who was this kind of. But it has been there. But it's just not like religiously accepted or culturally accepted.
The reason I thought that maybe transgenderism might be a little easier to accept for Ethiopians is they might think that instead of perversion, they might think they're just a little off. Like they know how they treat crazy people. Because I remember having a conversation years ago with a friend, and she was telling me in, I think it was just Gunda or somewhere, rural. Mm-hmm. She said she met a person. She stayed there a while. She met a guy. He was clearly a guy, because you can tell. But he dressed up as a woman in the village. He has the netala and everything. He's dressed up. He wants to be a woman, and he's accepted as such. You know what I mean? It's not because they're so progressive, but just he dressed up. He's a guy that dressed up as a woman. They just call him Angie. They mean it in a. They might not mean it in an equality sense. It might be a little kind of. It's almost playful, I guess. The old women in the village.
What does that happen when he becomes an adult and like has a grown life and everything?
It's a dude. It's not a boy. It's a man.
Okay, no, but like, what happens when he wants to get married, or I don't know
exactly.
how they
That's the question. That's exactly what I mean. Because they might treat him like one because he wears netala, whatever. It's playful for them. It's not because There's no sexual element to it. Mm-hmm. There is no sense of.
Okay.
But it's just a person pretending to be a woman. But as soon as, like you said, if he starts hitting on a man, I think that's a problem.
Okay.
Then they'll
if
say,
the idea of religion did not exist, do you think sexuality would be normal?
Yes, absolutely. I think.
So that's the only problem there.
Religion is definitely what makes it really weird about how the creative universe.
What about the whole idea of this is not natural? This is not how sex organs work.
No, exactly. I think those arguments come from religion. When they say it's not natural, what they actually mean is this is not what it was meant for, right? Like when they mean like to men it's not natural, what they mean is that's not what you were created for.
And one more thing.
But if you remove the creator aspect, then we just of course blowjobs are natural. Nobody's complaining about that, you know what I mean? So
but
if you remove the creator aspect, then it's fine.
Weird. Yeah, it's so weird to say like people associate natural with ethical because it's like. Because of God, though. Because, like, if God created you like this, that means it's positive, everything. Yeah. So, in nature, when, like, one of the perspectives they have, like, other animals don't have, like, homosexual relationships. But they do. Yeah. Which they don't want to talk about. Yeah. But, like, that's one of the reasons they're, like, unless they are, like, misconceptualized and they don't know what they're doing, like, this is not okay. Naturally, like dolphins rape other dolphins, right? And ducks rape other ducks.
Yeah, I've heard of ducks.
Yeah.
60% of duck reproduction I heard is through rape.
So
which kind of makes them dicks, because ducks seem so cute and friendly.
I know.
They're such dicks.
Have you seen the size of their dick? Like they have like a dick the size of like this much.
Seriously? Ducks?
Yes. And it's like coiled inside them, and during like sex, it just comes out. It's like so this.
Like the worst surprise about
literally
because they seem like such friendly animals. Turns out they just
their body size. It's the same length as their body size.
Really?
It's so huge, and it's like curled into a coil and just put right under their legs so you can't see it. And then during sexual activity, just kind of stretches out.
Ducks are perverts. Pretty much go around raping other ducks.
The idea is because it's natural doesn't mean it's ethical.
Yeah,
or it's something that's good to do.
Yeah.
we associate that like
I
it's
think
nature, so it's
the
edible
first
kind of thing.
nature is almost a matter of fact. Nature is it's what exists, right?
Yeah.
Ethical is a man-made notion. There is no such thing as ethical when it comes to nature. Nature
Yeah.
does not give a fuck about ethics. Ethics does not exist.
Yeah.
We invented ethics, literally, for the betterment of mankind, for
Yeah.
the good of everybody. But it doesn't exist.
I mean, like, even the idea of good and bad in general is like, for me, the idea of good is doing something that benefits you or somebody else while causing the least amount of suffering. That's for me like as good as it gets.
Yeah, that's like you said, it's as good as it can get.
Yeah,
And,
that's the only ideology that I can think of as good. But then, because of religion, like I think a lot of our like,
it's a very
in
complex
one
issue,
way,
as
yeah,
it's, you know,
in
is
one
it-
way, the religion was created to just make people saner, or more, like a little bit more secluded, and like maybe keep the lower people low, so that they won't fight the ones
Yeah.
on the top.
Yeah.
So because if the religion was like gone, everything would go crazy. Like I remember this really amazing example of what it means to be more than politics or more than just following the masses. And I told you about this example, I don't know. This was in one of the European countries, I forgot. I think it was in Norway or something. At some point, the government passed a law that says gay or lesbianism or any other sexuality is a disease.
Okay.
Yeah.
Norway.
Yeah, and then this was like 50,
Wow,
60 years
that-
ago. And then the people were like, because they weren't highly religious, the people were more of like, you know,
Secular.
okay with everything. Like they wanted everybody to be equal.
Yeah.
So what they did was they would call up their boss and say, I'm feeling a little gay today, and would not come from work. And they would do that every day.
Yeah.
And like not at a time, but everybody from every workplace kind of band
Solidarity in a
together
way, yeah.
band together and say, this is against what we believe, and the government is doing something we do not care about, so we're gonna go against it. And the actual like the resources or the actual workforce kind of went down, the capital kind of went down for that month, and they had to actually change the law. And this is what I always say when it comes to like banding together to be the better version of ourselves,
Solidarity
especially
is
when
very
it comes to
important,
politics and the government being, or the people in the top.
Yeah.
Always say, like, even with the whole ideology of, you see a lot of Ethiopians nowadays, when we choose leaders, we tend to Christianize them or like deify them. They're like a deity to us. And like after they become presidents or they become prime ministers, every church goes say, and we heard this was gonna happen. Like it was foretold from us. It was happening during the Haile Selassie.
It's like the coming of the Messiah.
Yeah. So
I mean, with the kings, I understand. With Haile Selassie, I understand because they were kings. They were appointed by
yeah,
God.
it was highly Christian kind of.
Yeah. But with this whole
Monarchy.
North Korean style of, you know,
Yeah, but then like
mythologized.
our religion has gone everywhere,
Yeah.
so that we can't think straight at all.
Yeah.
Like it's always there with our how we rear our children. It's very fucked up because of it. How we think of government, how we even have like our working force, you know, like our procrastination, the idea that children should not speak, that adults should be heard all the time,
Same level of caliber.
that women shouldn't have like a platform for and like the converse. A lot of the problems are so deeply focused in the idea of our customs and our religion, which is our customs is a lot to do with our religion.
Maybe we can learn from the Aramba people because they were religious
Yeah.
people. They rule Ethiopian country, which are very religious, but somehow they decided. He convinced them.
Yeah, the
Zumra,
guy leader. Yeah.
He convinced them that this is for the best of their own, you know, survival or
But even then, like a man had to go and say something to the community to
yeah,
get
but
them
at
out.
least I admire him for kind of sort of flipping the culture.
Yeah, I
Flipping
think
the
that
culture
guy
so
actually went
completely.
to like a proper like government college or something. Like
I'm not sure.
yeah, I think so. Like he got some proper education somewhere and then came back to his community or something. So
But
he
it's
had
still
some
interesting
sort
how you
of.
convince them, though.
It's true.
But it's
true.
very difficult. You can't do that. You
True,
can't-
especially
People go against
people
what's
with an
best for them,
advantageous standpoint.
Yeah.
To convince them is really hard.
Exactly. Yeah, they would go for
Especially the men. That's what I mean.
even if it's advantageous for them.
Yeah.
You know, they're like, because like you said, it's not like all men are leaders of the community. You know,
But in order
they
to
just
do
want to
that-
keep the status quo. You know what I mean?
Yeah. In order to do that, though, we would need to like self-sufficient community, small community
Yeah.
that does not need anything
Outside
from
resources,
others
yeah,
or have
exactly.
like
Kind
that
of
that negative kind of pressure if they just abruptly change their
Yeah,
lifestyle.
yeah.
So that's one of the big problems of religion at the same time. Like you see a lot of the NGOs are highly Christian.
Yeah.
Or they have a lot to do with religion.
They
and
smuggle a
customs.
lot
Yeah.
of ideology with their age.
Yeah, and because of that ideology, nowadays that like a lot of the focus has been like the Western version of Christianity now,
Yeah.
and we think we're so highly Christian because the history was
Yeah,
there
yeah.
for us. But the true history, the old Christianity history is done.
Yeah.
Now we have
Yeah.
like Western
It's a
Christianity.
modern version of it. Yeah.
Yeah, it was Western like think of like a lot of Orthodox Christians nowadays, like so comfortable eating teresa and drinking beer and having all sorts of alcohol and everything, and they consider themselves highly Christian.
I mean, it's
Which
not
is
just that.
completely
They
illegal.
have no problem with adultery and murder.
Yeah.
If we're talking about rule, like stealing, they
Yeah.
might not steal. They might not be pickpockets, but complex forms of stealing have become celebrated. You know what I mean? This
Yeah.
country. You're an idiot if you don't take
Bribes, yeah.
or if you don't. It's kind of it's our culture now.
Yeah, it's
we
like
steal
a
and
healthy
whatever we don't
form
get.
of sin.
Yeah.
It's a normal, like accepted sin
Yeah,
nowadays.
exactly. Which
like,
does not make sense. It's literally in the 10 Commandments. There's 10 rules. It's right there.
Do
No,
not
we don't
steal.
care about it.
yeah, adultery. I mean,
Yeah,
adultery, like
adultery.
especially in Christian communities,
Yeah.
is so normal. Like
Accepted, yeah.
even in not just in the rural, which rural is actually very normal.
Yeah.
But even in the actual cities where it's like legally people get like bind together in marriage in legal terms and legal
Yeah.
papers, a lot of, especially if you're a rich man, to have like a lot of women in other communities is very normal. Like
Yeah.
you would have side chicks everywhere.
And then they're
And
absolute Christians.
highly acceptable.
They're absolute Christians. They think they're Christians. You know what I mean?
Very Christians. They celebrate Mikael Maria.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
They're
They're very religious. Yeah.
And like that is a normalized version of sin.
Yeah.
And that's so highly westernized. Like it's the fake kind of Christianity. And so like the true, like the really religious or the highly traditional kind of Christianity was more to do with giving and affection and the loyalty to each other and the
Yeah.
love for a country.
I guess it only works very short spans of time. Though Christianity always sort of fails, immediately.
But any form
It
of
always gets corrupt so
any form
fast,
of ideology that has like a misconception
Yeah.
built within it,
Especially when
is
it has
just
hierarchy
crazy.
in a certain organization, people will rise to the top and they'll take advantage of it.
Of course. And I feel like, especially Christianity and Muslim.
People thought communism was genius right up until they tried it.
I mean, no, but like Christianity and Muslim especially is highly capitalist. Like you can see it's easily like there are hierarchies. It benefits the people on the top.
They play off each other.
It genuinely tells you not to rebel against your leaders.
Yeah.
It tells you to stay quiet.
Yeah, just
to
accept the status quo and-
like slap one face and just like give the other one. It basically tells you to be like the subdued version of yourself.
Because
Like,
you'll get rewarded in the next life.
which is really sad
that is
because
really sad,
that's the capitalist mentality. Like we're gonna enjoy the money
Exploiting you,
life
yeah.
here, and you just like
You'll
enjoy
get
yourself.
rewards next life.
Yeah, enjoy
You
your
just
suffering.
chill out, yeah.
It's fine because
But
the
because
next
before
life's gonna be
capitalism
better.
was the kings, wasn't it? It was the aristocrats that told them like, oh, we're suffering with you. We'll go to hell. You guys go to heaven. But for now, I'm gonna be chilling.
Yeah, and then it's like it has quotes where like a rich person probably has a very zero chance of going to heaven, while a poor person will probably do. Like
So
for a place you do not know when
Voltaire
it
that
exists or
said,
not.
"Of course God does not exist, but don't tell my servant because he's gonna kill me in my sleep."
I mean, it's so weird. I have this really amazing quote, which I like. Maybe I'm not gonna like say it in the right sense, but the ideology of it is. So this was also another, I think, historian or evolutionarist or something, and what he says was, if God is so judgmental that he would he would take all the people who do not believe in him to go to hell. I think it's better not to believe in him, because
such
we wouldn't want to believe in a God like that. So, he would need your belief to like, you could be doing everything that's good, but just because you don't believe in him, he will just take you
very
to.
needy creator.
That's not the kind of God I would like. That's what he said. Like, if that's the kind of God that is, the fact that I don't believe in him gives me a lot of happiness.
Yeah.
But I don't want to believe in a God like that to go to heaven as well. So
very
like
clingy.
yes, like it's just a very but like it's so sad.
Yeah.
Like, who would want to believe in a God like that? Like, I
Low
don't.
self-esteem.
God with low self-esteem. A little bit.
Like, he needs you to believe in him so that he would put you into the right place. Like, that just sounds like a very sad version of the God. Like, that's not the kind of
Heaven
God
sounds boring in general, though, right? Even if it exists, because there's going to be a bunch of annoying douchebags there.
I feel like.
Of all the people you've met, think of the people
Hell
that might
is-
go to heaven.
hell is gonna be
they're the
like-
worst people to hang around with.
Yeah, I feel like hell is gonna be the non-religious side of the world. That's
mean, like,
why I kind of
So pretty
like
much
hell is.
Scandinavia.
No, but like no, 100%. Like it does not exist.
Oh, that sounds fun though.
Yeah, that's what I mean. And then heaven is like the like where good things only happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that sounds like a pretty heavenly place.
That's so like I would want to go to hell if that's the case. I don't want to go to a place where
It generally seems
everything
better.
good always happens.
Generally seems better.
I feel like hell is the second earth.
Most
for
of your
me.
friends are going to be there, definitely.
I feel like seriously, hell is going to be a second earth. Basically, it's going to be like the same thing, but
without
religion.
any religious people, at
Yes,
least. Yeah,
it's
so-
awesome.
Yeah.
Like I love the place already. Can I go now?
Yeah, we should open a club called Hell. Like
Ooh,
such a
club
name.
hell. I don't think anybody would come though. Just by the name,
Just the
like
right amount
everybody's
of people.
gonna
The
be.
right people will come. They're just not enough to sustain the business.
I don't think so.
Six
Like even
people.
the whole
6 to
idea.
8, 10
Imagine
people at
like
best.
let's say the Ganna, like the whole holiday happened,
Yeah.
and like post Ganna or post holidays, everybody kind of goes to party and go
Yeah.
to club. And imagine like
Club.
Christmas Day and then go to club hell.
I mean, Christmas is the most pagan of religion,
Yeah,
the holidays, so it makes sense.
And it just
we
keeps on
put
going
gifts
back and
under a
forth.
tree and then we go to hell. I mean, it works.
I mean, it's the most hilarious thing. But anyway, going to the next topic about we've been talking about the religion so much.
Yeah.
And civilization. So I think after the whole like civilized empires, there's the existence of like the new empires now, like the Roman Empire and the existence of colonialism and all
I mean, relatively new.
yeah, I mean, it's like how did the transition from like the old civilizations to the new empires kind of
It's
start?
a broad question, though. It depends which civilization, Russ. And I don't know if I can answer any of them, Russ.
In general, I think in general perspective, it just came from the need to survive. It just came from the need to survive of the central, like the European civilization needed to survive. I think, like, and then the resources was
seems like
not
more
there.
than just survival. I think there's expansion and ambition.
Yes, there's still some of that, but to get that much of resource for that much of a growing population, because the empire kind of gets bigger and
so then you need more resources.
yes,
And then next thing
and
you know, you
Europe
need more
does
and more
not have
resources.
any of the resources that like Africa and South
Yeah.
America and even at the time that North America had.
But a lot of these ambitious leaders wasn't specifically when we talk about these leaders that came like Alexander the Great or Napoleon.
Yeah, the need to discover and to
It wasn't just
to
for
gain
resources.
power
It
was
was
always
was
there.
about their gaining, colonizing the world in a way, conquering the
But
world.
you colonize for the resources. It's not something that you like.
But even if they had
wanna
all the
go
resources in
and
the
use.
world, I think they'd still colonize some more. It was about being king of the world in a way, wasn't it? For these leaders, who the
I don't
Roman
think if it was matriarchal, nobody would actually want that. But okay.
maybe.
I don't think like people like if you found resources and you had an abundance of everything. I don't think
I mean,
it's a matriarchal quality to just go and be like, I want a more. This is what I mean. Like the need for needing purpose
Yeah.
is so embedded in men. I see a lot of the feminine quality so advantageous because we don't have that need to be
Ambitious.
taking over
I mean,
others.
women are also
Not
very ambitious. They
ambitious.
can be ambitious. That's
No,
what I mean.
ambition and
Purpose.
power over others or need for purpose
Domination.
are two very different things.
Domination.
Yeah, a need for domination is always embedded in the male persona. That's and that's why
And some
aggression.
dominatrix would disagree.
Ooh, I mean, that's highly sexual.
Yeah, it is.
It's mostly just sexual domination.
Yeah.
But in general, I think that's a good quality as a leader, because I think good leaders follow from behind and
Yeah,
let
makes sense.
their societies grow.
Mhm.
And bad leaders, as I said, with the qualities of domination, just want to be the bigger versions of themselves until the day they die, so that their history will always be there, and they've that narcissism is still
Yeah, it's about
built in.
it's ego and for a lot of leaders, especially the great ones, quote unquote.
Haven't
The-
they
the
even considered
ambitious ones,
themselves
that's what I
great?
mean.
They
Yeah,
name
it's
themselves,
usually themselves. Yeah, but they usually
like-
have the most legacy and the most power and the most followers.
Yeah.
We haven't had one like that in a while. I guess the last super ambitious leader, I was gonna say Hitler. Again, I guess Kasubala would be. I think Putin is also very ambitious. Very sort of. Because if it was a different time, I think he would have been an absolute,
Dictator.
yeah, I'm
Like
king.
world
He would
dictator.
just expand his dominion.
It's true.
As it is, he's quite aggressive. He doesn't
Yeah,
care.
I think if it wasn't for the formation of the U.S. or the modern U.S.
That's what I mean. If there was no checks, or,
Yeah.
I think you would absolutely be there. You'd be known as Putin the Great.
Yeah, it's definitely a possibility.
Yes.
But I think it's just I don't know. It's always the need of men in general, or men characteristics, let's say, because there's Catherine the Great and all that. But that
exactly.
that
You'd
masculine,
have these exceptions.
yeah, that toxic masculine characters are always going to be there with the leaders that we choose still now, because of our inherent hereditary brain power that tells us
But
if you're this highly talkative and energetic and confident, and even though you're not educated, if you're
Yeah.
highly so narcissistic that people believe you.
But with that,
with the whole stories
like
of
you said, there's exceptional women that are also that have toxic masculinity. You know,
Sure.
that have that
That's what I mean.
personality, yeah.
Even with leaders nowadays, a lot of the leaders that we see in parliaments and as presidents or prime ministers have toxic masculinity traits.
They do. I think that's what leads them, or at least gives them the ambition to be leaders. That's the failing of the whole logic here, is that these incompetent leader types,
Yeah.
the ambitious leader types, they're leaders because they have the desire to be leaders. A lot of times, the people that would make great leaders usually don't want to be. Or as Mark Twain said, the person who should be president is the person who wants it least.
Yeah, I mean, but
So that's why
who's gonna vote for that?
Exactly,
There should be another system.
that exactly. So the whole system fails in the
Rigged.
sense that because democracy gives the even the nominees,
Yeah.
even in a democratic situation, are people who just want to be leaders. And usually people who want to be leaders are dicks. They just, more times
So
than
the
not.
system should be completely changed.
Where we-
The old stories, what we hear, the old folk tales where one big leader would ask a lot of small leaders to be by his side, or a sidekick,
Yeah.
and then they would all be confident and crazy, and then one would just be quiet and
Yeah.
just,
Like
and
the-
then he would
like-
choose.
like
I
the
think
David
that
story.
should I think that should be the norm of every
David or King
election
Arthur. A lot of
nowadays.
times there's these myths, right, in every culture. Because King Arthur, who pulled the sword out, even though he's a nobody.
Yeah.
Excalibur. And then you have David, who's a nobody,
Yeah.
who killed the giant. That's a fantasy a lot of times, isn't it? Because I personally can't think of any, at least modern day leader, that did not want to be leader. They was pushed into the position. A lot of times, even if they act modest, even Abiy does this a little. You know what I mean? Where he doesn't want to look ambitious. He wants to look like he's here for the country. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
He didn't want to do it, but he just has to take the place. But at the end of the day, he's ambitious. You know what I mean? He gives it up with the whole king speech and everything.
Yeah.
And so I think even when they pretend to be modest and I had to take this position for you, it's usually bullshit. It's all rehearsed. They
Yeah.
wanted to be leaders. They dreamed about it since they were 6 years old.
What do you think would be
You know what I mean?
a good system, though? Like, can you come up with like an election method?
Maybe we should take the jury system, which would just randomly votes to a random civilian. You know, just, oh, you're gonna be leader, by the way.
Yeah, I think like maybe a system where every adult male and female would all write an essay. Like it's mandatory to write an essay of some like
The person they know.
No, some educated people who know about politics and leadership would form out this really good like questionnaire or essay, and everybody writes it down, and those people like randomly gets the answers, and those people would just vote by the answer, and whoever it is would just come and lead.
Just lead, okay.
That would be a good system.
That might also fail because then you're voting for the best writers.
But
You get what I mean?
isn't that like sort
Because
of
that's the failing of democracy as well, because we're voting for the best liars, right?
yeah.
Right?
But then there's no way of knowing what's
There's no way
inside
of knowing. Because I guess Switzerland government really fascinates me. I know the fact that they have direct democracy,
yeah.
where
Like
where
referendum?
the parliament does where every citizen votes for every law. Did you know that?
But then there's very small amount of people. Like what if it's a country of
Exactly. But for a small population, it really works. It's genius, isn't it?
It does.
Where every citizen votes, because you don't really need a parliament. It's not representative. I don't need to vote for a congressman or whatever.
yeah.
I get a letter every few
What
years.
if we just
where I
divide
vote
the
for, do you want to
countries
legalize weed?
to a Switzerland-sized
little,
places, yes.
little states.
Yes, that's
That's
and then
pretty much what
everybody
happened.
does
America,
whatever they want.
that's central. Because the head of state of Switzerland, they have 7 people. You know that, well, they have 7 people, and
Okay.
none of them have that. They don't really have power.
Mhm.
They only have heads of state because they need representation. Right? If you go to
For
the
they
UN
go
or
to-
whatever, so they have 7 people,
That's like
7 people, and they switch every year.
okay.
So
Wow.
they don't really have power. They just meant
That's
to represent the
awesome.
country. It's
I
pretty
want to
good.
go
Yeah.
to if
Where
you're
every citizen
listening to
votes for
this-
every law,
Yeah.
and you have 7 leaders that don't have any power. That seems pretty fantastic. doesn't
If
it?
you're listening to
So
Switzerland, I want to come.
We're coming.
Yes, like I will work as anybody if you want. Just like
It's a
come.
pretty good system,
Yes.
doesn't it?
It's a very nice ideology to live in. So
Maybe we could adapt some of it.
I don't care. No, I don't.
Oh, you
I'm
wanna
not gonna
move?
wait. Yes,
You
I'm not
wanna
gonna
move, you
wait.
wanna move.
I have a few years to live. So
Makes sense.
like,
yeah.
if,
Why
if
wait?
you're listening right now, I wanna come. Please provide me. But anyway, like, I mean, that's a good system to work on if it's just as you said,
It's
if
a
it's
few-
like writing, if everybody's good at writing.
Mhm.
But I don't like maybe personality tests. So subconscious personality tests, would that work?
Yeah, maybe you need to raise them like the Spartans or something, like the Athens. Maybe we need to raise the leaders from childhood.
But then, come on,
To
but
me-
that's like monarchy all over again.
Yeah, that's literally what I care about.
Yes.
But I don't remember. I don't remember where I read it because I think I remember reading I don't know if it was Athens or something. They raised the leaders right from childhood, and they convinced them of only the leaders are taught this right from childhood. They convinced them of reincarnation, and that exists. They absolutely believe that when they die they'll come back as anybody, right? But
Okay.
they also, the main point is that they convince them that you can come back as anybody. You're going to be recreated in your country. You're going to be
Okay.
reborn in your country. You can come back as a woman, as a slave, as anybody, right? So if you really convince,
So just a human being, not
you
animals.
can come back as anybody in
Anything.
your country, right?
Okay.
So and then they raise like four kids with such beliefs, and they really believe it from the bottom of their heart. So they grow up and they become the leaders. So the idea is that if they're the leaders, any law they write, they know that when they die and they come back, might affect them.
Oh,
You know what I
that's
mean?
very advantageous, actually.
So it's quite fair. This is the most fairest way you could get it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So that way they'd be scared. They're not gonna be unfair to anybody. They might come back as a slave, as a woman, as any race.
never
as
know.
anybody. You never know. So I
But
want to
then
make sure
that's
it's
like
as fair as possible.
Scaring
isn't it?
leaders into submission.
And
kind
that's
of.
pretty. Yeah, exactly. It's not feasible. It's
Yeah.
not feasible. But at least it seems to be the fairest way, at least.
But
'Cause
like,
they'd be so scared. They'd make it fair.
delusionally brainwashing them should not be the norm.
No,
of
of course not.
creating
It would not
leaders.
work.
That's
It would not
just
work.
sad.
But it seems that
Yeah.
it's the closest I think we came to having
Yeah,
the fairest
but like
leaders.
if we can do that, like for me, as you said, like the best way to probably form leaders would be to give everybody, as I said, like adult women and men, like between say the age of 65.
So what if they don't want to be leaders? They have to.
It doesn't matter. It's
They
like
have to-
mandatory.
They have to be
Yeah.
leaders. Yeah.
Yes, it's mandatory for
Yeah.
every man and woman
Mhm.
from the age of like say 20.
I don't want to be president. I want to be a dancer.
Doesn't matter
Yeah, it doesn't
because
matter.
it's one leader.
Yeah.
I'm sure, like, for the betterment of the country, it's
It would be
okay
fine, yeah.
to sacrifice one
Just put up with
person.
it, be a leader.
Yes, but if there is this like very well known personality trait tests
Mhm.
that you can't lie because you would get like
Yeah, the polygraph.
You'd be like hooked into the polygraph test,
Yeah.
and then you would answer that personality trait question.
Imagine,
if you had that
imagine
motivation.
hating being a leader so much that you lie. You just try to sound like an asshole though. I'd
But
spend
by
all
the
the
way,
money on drugs.
Even
Don't trust
then,
me with it.
they could still breed leaders because they could like
Yeah.
teach them how to answer certain questions.
But who's they? That's the question. Those are the real
Those
leaders
in
then.
power still.
Those are the real leaders then, right?
Yeah,
Those
those
are-
in power now,
Yeah.
they would still find a
How
way
are they
to be
voted
like,
into the power? The same way?
No, I mean the people in power. I mean like the people with money,
Ah, okay.
because like there won't be any leaders.
Yeah.
But those who will effectively the people, you can't take away the money of them.
No, of course not.
If
And
we
they
could
will always have a
restart
lot of
life
power,
as zeros and the money would be in a bank, that would be a good thing.
Yeah.
But like the people with money are going to be like, we still want some
Absolutely. They still have a lot of power.
yes, some ideology and power
Mm-hmm.
to be instigated into the politics with our money. So they're gonna breed someone like that.
Wow.
So I think it's just like an impossible game to play,
We
just to make it a better version of
We need to
itself.
get high for this conversation to figure out the new system, the new world order.
I mean, but like, how did they do it? Like the better countries at it to like. As like the parliamentary or political better countries.
I guess it's not that they did it. It's just that it's incremental. It's through steps. It's kind of like the difference between
the first step
broken
was
homes and
abolishing
great
religion.
families.
You do know that, like.
Yeah, no, but I think it goes hand in hand. It's not like people just came together, a religious country came together and said, we need to get rid of religion. You know, it never gets about in that way, you know. So it's very incremental. So it's like broken homes are not really happy families.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because it's not like a family just decided from now on we're going to be a happy, great family. No, you can't. It's usually your parents came from a good family as well.
Mm-hmm.
Their parents, so it's very gradual and it became better. And then the kids are probably going to have good families as well, but not necessarily. Sometimes the kind of breaks, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes kids from broken families also might make it, but a lot of times the pattern just keeps going, doesn't it? You just take what was given to you and you just keep it going. So a lot of developed countries, it's not like they're superior or more intelligent that they made it happen. The system was there.
Yeah.
And it was given to them, and all you got to do is not fuck it up. Sometimes they do fuck it up. That's why you have developed countries that become poor all of a sudden. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But a lot of times you don't. You have a pretty good system going.
Yeah.
You give it to your kids, and then they also keep it going. A lot of times, when you have a fucked up country like Ethiopia, even the culture is bad. Even what
Yeah,
you inherit is
everything
bad.
is
So you don't even know what to give the next generation. So they're also confused, and they fuck it up. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And then the whole idea of monopolized money is kind of creating the worst thing for it. Like
which is the
everybody,
case with a
not
lot
just
of
Ethiopians or any country in general. Like the fact that the resources are in the hands of like 1% of the they can basically do whatever they want.
That is the weakness. That is the major problem with capitalism, isn't it? That's where it'll end up sooner, and it's going to get worse and worse. Where you have 0.2% of the population owning 99% of the resources, and it's just gonna. That's the way.
It is
That's
the
where it's
worst
headed.
possible thing. Like, I was like reading the other day, and they say like our resources are depleting, and a lot of people are gonna starve in the next few years. And the funny part is, we have produced as a nation, as Earth, 2 times the amount of
To feed the entire
people,
world.
the entire world. Like, what are we doing with this food?
I mean, a lot of developed countries also have a lot of food wastage.
Not just that, but they're overeating.
Yeah, the overeating plus wastage. I heard about 50% of food gets wasted in developed countries.
Imagine like the easiest way to abolish obesity
isn't that
in
the
the
saddest
US
thing
is
in the
just to take away food. Like just give you the
but
amount
they
of
still
food you
waste
need.
a lot of food as well, because the idea, like in developed countries, they waste a lot of food from their fridge. They buy a lot of stuff, they put it in the fridge, and then a few days later they open it, it's like there's nothing. They just throw it out, a whole bunch of stuff, just because a banana has a black spot on it. That's the saddest part of the world. That's just across
People
the ocean.
do that
people
to
are actually
start a
starving.
diet or
You know what I mean?
something.
Yeah, people are actually starving to death, and you have the rest of the world, which I think
Like the people, they would just, oh no, I'm getting
They
too
have full
fat, and they
fridge,
start dieting, and then they throw everything out
Yeah.
from their fridge too.
There needs to be some sort of funnel.
Maybe
Deliberate.
like serious. No, but like they could get like a small amount of money every time people waste.
That's what I never
There's a
understood
system
about NGOs.
in Japan.
Japan.
In Japan. In Japan, there is a system, I think,
To
in
deliver like the excess food to people who need it.
no. So you pay money every time you throw food.
Oh, okay.
So there's this dustbin.
Okay. So
every
you
time
buy just what you need.
exactly what you need.
Yeah.
If you throw anything, then you have to pay.
Oh, nice.
a
So
certain amount.
I give them food and money.
Yes.
That's quite a scam. They
No,
got
but
good
like,
at it.
not
It's
just
pretty
that,
good.
but
Yeah,
you buy
actually.
the amount that you need.
Yeah, exactly.
So
No, I get why they do it, but
Yeah.
imagine having to throw away food and I gotta give them money. I just flush it down the toilet. Fuck that. I'm not paying attention.
You can't do that because that's another problem on its own because they would find out. But anyway, so maybe that's the kind of system we need to have.
That's what also confuses me. The sheer incompetence of NGOs and these worldwide aid.
But that's not to help anyone, though. It's not
No,
generally.
it's not. That's what I mean. Like,
Have you seen like African Union and the UN? No, not just like the
Yeah.
United Nations or all the NGOs. Have you seen the price range of the people they pay? And then most of them are like people they bring from Europe and other
Yeah.
Americans and all that. And the amount of money they pay them, like salary payments, and even like local Ethiopians that work
Yeah.
in the NGOs.
Yeah. And
I mean-
salary is just the baseline because they have
There are
shit ton
people
of
starving, and you
benefits
came
as well.
here, yeah. And you came here as an NGO to help people in need, and you're paying people
Yeah,
this
shit ton.
amount of money. Like that, there has to be
You'd
something
think
going
that
on.
with the amount of money that they're dealing with, there would be an actual like a lot. I'm sure there's a lot of. It's effective to a certain extent. They might build schools and whatever, but you'd think they'd eradicate a lot of stuff by now. A lot of
course,
quality,
I didn't even
but nothing.
think.
It's just nothing.
It's the same thing. It's
Yeah.
basically it's
The
actually
bottom
getting
line
worse
is-
in some
In
places.
some ways, they don't really seem that productive at all. They don't seem productive at all to a certain extent. With the sheer number of NGOs in this country, in every neighborhood we drive around, you see a whole bunch of mysterious abbreviations and
Yes.
acronyms and.
But and then you don't see them doing anything for the community at all.
no.
Like they're even more
It
better.
takes them 5 years to build one school in some rural area. You know what I mean? That's it. That's all they
I
do.
mean, it's the saddest thing ever nowadays. Like it's I don't know. It's a really sad situation that's happening. But like, I don't know. Like when it comes to the modern, like, how do you think it happened? Like, why are we here? Like,
I mean,
what
why
what
are
did
we
we
created?
do? Especially as Africans. No, I mean,
Yeah.
as Ethiopians and
Why did
Africans.
it turn out bad?
What happened to us? Like,
Yeah,
what
it's
was
a
so
multitude of
wrong
things,
that
right?
happened that completely changed the trajectory of our civilization and our lifestyle?
I mean, it depends on which point. Though. I mean, colonization had a big thing to do with it. I'm sure.
Yeah, I think it's one of the worst things to happen.
Yeah, definitely. Colonization.
to
Modern day
modern
colonization.
world.
I'm not just talking about the old one, but
Yeah.
how they still have a lot of power
Yeah.
over them. The whole
I
Commonwealth
mean,
countries and all
we're
that. bullshit.
literally saying goodbye to one slave and then getting another slave now.
Yeah, I guess poverty is a vicious cycle.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're poor, so then your kids are not really educated, so that makes them even poorer, and it's really hard to kind of break that cycle, and
But
that's
then,
what's happening.
the rising civilizations like China and Singapore and
Yeah,
Taiwan and all that, like how did they get there and we're
Exactly,
still right
stuck.
where we are?
I think the major problem with at least Ethiopia, because Africa it's such a expansive place, and that's very wide. Because there are some countries that are doing pretty well. That
like
are
what, like South
democratic.
Africa, Nigeria?
Namibia, I heard, is pretty good with their leaders. At least they have respect and love for their leaders
But
and
in, like, the
democratically elected countries.
development
Burundi, I think
sense.
it's always been democratically elected, if I'm not mistaken.
Mhm.
There's a few, there are very few, but there's a few African countries that have always had democratic elections. That people are not really, but there's still corruption. That's what kills it at the end of the day. In Ethiopia, at least, I more than anything else, corruption is not only rampant, but it's almost encouraged. You know what I mean?
Because of the poverty.
Yeah, exactly. And the corruption makes it way worse. I'm sorry, China, corruption is like it's a life sentence, right? Life or death sentence, one of the two.
Yes.
So they understood that corruption is one of the worst, because corruption by itself is almost hard to spot. It's not just bribery, you know what I mean? There's all sorts of nepotism is a form of corruption.
Yeah.
So
And it's like, if it's culturally accepted though, and it just becomes normalized, and it just like incessantly creates so much
I think we need an aggressive
disposition
sort
in
of
general.
government where not like aggressive, but I mean somebody who's just, because the people want change, as we saw when Abiy came into power. Right when he came into power, but everybody sort of was generally happy, and that shows you they want to change. They're willing to, if they get the right leadership, I think the people are willing to sacrifice. Not everybody, there's still dicks.
But isn't that like a human character though?
It is. That's what I mean.
Because like we're unsettled
yeah,
beings
exactly,
in
and
general.
we want to be.
We just want something to change all the time.
But that surprised the world, because there seems to be this notion of it's their own fault. You know, the people are lazy, or the people are stupid, or the people are corrupt.
We are kind
But
of
it's not.
lazy.
No, but we're lazy
in
because there's
this
really nothing to
perspective.
work towards. As soon as a country becomes I mean, you can see this with, I guess, European countries like Greece and Italy. I guess when the economy kind of gets low, shit snowballs. It gets worse and worse. And as soon as you become hopeless, then you become more aggressive or stupid or lazy.
But how do you become hopeful in a prospective country of
That is
like,
the $1 million
the
question. I guess.
poverty,
Yeah, exactly.
poverty based where
But
you
if
can't
you
be
put them
any
on the right,
better-
but if you
better
put them on the right
version of
line, I
yourself.
think, because I guess the greatest proof that Ethiopians are not lazy and that they're willing, because they're lazy here. A lot of people I know that you'd think they're lazy because they don't. When it comes to their work, they don't want to show up on time. Maybe they don't really want to learn or improve themselves. But as soon as a lot of Ethiopians move to America, they work like 10 hours at least.
Because they
you know what I
have
mean?
to survive.
No, not because they have to, but they usually become successful enough. They work harder than the average. Like they work 2 jobs, and
because they get compensated as well. Like,
exactly, that's what I mean. So as soon as you promise them a certain amount of compensation, they're willing to work even extra hard for it, as long as they can get compensated for it. So that shows you that if the same situation applied here, if you gave, because you can see this with a lot of industries that compensate their people. As soon as an Ethiopian joins Ethiopian Airlines, as soon as they join a beer company, they become like the hardest
really
workers. They work their
work,
ass
yeah.
off because they know they can be rewarded. So if you, because in this case we have like 3 industries or 2 that we can say that about, right? You have Ethiopian Airlines and you have the beer industries. That's it. Anywhere else you give up. As soon as you become a bank employee, you're like, oh fuck this shit.
Yeah, you just like
But imagine,
do the bare minimum.
but
and
imagine
then
if we
get
had
that
like
back,
20, 30 industries like those 2.
yeah.
Where college graduates get it and they know they can be promoted. They can, they not just promoted but well paid. They can travel the world with their job. Then you'd have a shit ton of people that are working their ass off, and it would be a different thing.
Yeah, and it's always like blamed on the majority of the community.
Yeah.
Like it's like, oh yes, they procrastinate. Like Ethiopians are lazy or stupid or whatever. It's always just like putting the blame on the community and the people in general,
but
not the actual.
Yeah, I don't think it's fair though.
system.
I think anybody in this situation would if anybody who judges a European person or whatever is like, oh, they should rise up and whatever. Like if you lived here for 5 years, then you'd understand. You can't. The whole system is against you. There's no way to rise up. There's no way.
I mean, it's like it's crazy. Like a lot of the people who come here as diaspora, especially like nowadays. A lot of the people are being called to come to this community and everything. I mean, you do know, like, some of them get successful, but most of them, they come and, like, they see the system and then go back, right? Yeah. Like, a lot of people just see the ones that stayed because they stayed. They're still there, and they become successful, right? Yeah. But a lot of the people who come here have, like, small businesses, do something, and then they're like, this is not something that I want to be part of. Hey, at least there, at least there, even if I'm ignored as an immigrant or if I'm like disrespected or not paid enough, at least I get paid some amount for my sufferings and for my, and then a lot of the educated people, they're leaving the country because of this particular reason, because
brain drain or whatever.
They have the potential, the energy, the working force, the power, even the enthusiasm and the ideas to do something about the world, not just about their country. But then they don't ever get the opportunity.
So they want to go where there is opportunity.
I mean, and the whole idea is, I think it could just easily be solved by giving them more space and more, I don't know, advantages in general. And
the government needs to focus on more important sectors such as education and industrialization. I mean, they focus on industrialization, but a very short-term form of it. Like, oh, China's coming, let's give tax breaks. So I think we need way more attractive incentives, because industries change everything. As soon as the beer companies were sold to foreign companies, you had a whole industry that changed everything around it. You had people that wanted to be employed in that. They employed a shit ton of people that worked hard. Yeah. You had event companies that blew up, because before beer companies were sold out. The only way you can get concerts in this country is when Alamudi felt like. Yeah. If you remember, there's no other way you get to see a concert, because nobody's gonna pay for that shit. As soon as the beer industry, that's just one industry that changed so many other industries. You have the event organization industry that changed. You have printing companies that blew up. You have TV stations that blew up because beer is the main sponsor. Yeah. So even one industry can affect so many around it. So imagine if we did that to other industries as well. Yeah.
But then I think the whole idea of industrialization has caused this problem. Because, if you've seen that, like, the 9-to-5 job, or the daily one payment, like the monthly one payment salary, and, you never go up or down, that's just like the same level you go to. There's no ideology of advancing your education to be like a leader now, like to just go upscale and just go like up the pyramid and be there is no ideology because of that industrialization. And I think industrialization was created to keep people who are the mass as the mass. Like
but we fail as an industrialized nation. We're not really an industrial nation. Right? We don't really have. Yeah, we have industries, but we're not. It's not enough because if it was well paid, and it was enough of it, because the unemployment rate is still high. That's why you have a lot of migration towards the capital city. Because they really have jobs.
I'm not saying like modern day industrialization, but like farming is I consider as like one industrial product for me.
Yeah, I mean,
just because it's not like fully organized and
or modernized.
Yeah. It doesn't actually mean it's not.
It is the agriculture industry.
Yes. So I mean, even in that perspective, like
we fail at that.
Yeah, like even like I have a friend of mine who is a farmer now. She was she studied like she went to college. She lived born and raised in Addis, like us, like lived in the modern day world, right? So and she studied pharmacology, and then she was like, this is not the perspective I want to see, because she's like the only way she could work was work in the like the ministry, like the agricultural ministry. That's basically the only thing she could do, or become a teacher somewhere, teaching farming in a college, university level.
Not fulfilling at all. Huh?
Not at all. And then, but the very advantage was because her dad was rich. He bought her a land in part of around Galiti or something, and then she has her own farm. Now she like has and now she started doing poultry.
Farm,
she started doing poultry and animal like poultry and all that. I mean, when I see those people, like if the resources were there, I'm sure there are people who would come up. Who would come up with the idea to industrialize on even basically traditional lifestyle here as well. But the big problem nowadays are like, I think with the leadership is always when it comes to, especially, you know, the African leadership is a problem on its own, because everybody's trying to get your resources, and you industrializing on your own resources is the worst thing to have for any foreign government or for any Western government. That's a problem on its own. But then the internal problem of this incessant poverty is your leaders, to some extent, want the money. They're there to get the money.
That's why the whole diaspora, the dick riding out of diaspora, like, come in, you're so welcome. This is for dollars. That's it. They're just so desperate for money, and you do whatever. You're welcome. You'd be friends with the enemy nation if you have to. If it brings dollars, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and then like, if the leaders are there to lead the money away from the people and to put them in their pockets, like, you're never winning anywhere. Like, there's no winning, because
what they do with the money also, there's a lot of mismanagement. That's a problem. Because we might own them.
If it's in the hands of the politicians, especially all of it.
That's what I mean.
Of course, it's going to be mismanaged.
That's what I meant by corruption. That is part of corruption, isn't it? Where you get money. I mean, up until recently, we live in a country where condominium blocks or sort of inaugurated, and then the whole building is missing. Remember that old story? There's many stories of we lost the building. We don't know where it is. We didn't make it. We're sorry. But not it's almost ridiculous that level of corruption. You know what I mean? Yeah. This is not. We're not talking about.
I remember in college. When I was an intern in Black Line, I'm like, I don't care if they find out or anything. Like, I don't want to name names, but I'm pretty sure they know their names. The people who are our undergraduate dean and the departments of the like surgical department deans and the internal medicine department deans who have been in the Grand Bessa Hospital and in the medical like fields for 20-30 years, who have owned their own houses and apartments and everything. The government says a lot of the residents there do not have anywhere to live. So most of them basically have this like tiny little rooms that they sleep, just to have beds on, and it's just the saddest form of life. And then they're doctors. Like, residents means they are like general practitioners trying to be specialists.
Yeah, they're graduated doctors.
Yeah, and they're trying to be specialists. So the government came up with, let's just give them condominiums, and all of this department's head just took it. there was a
Heads took it.
posting. Yeah, the posting said there is about 50 plus condominiums available free for anybody that is in need of housing. And all the seriously, like some of them took like 2-3.
Yeah.
Like I remember their names posted next to like block something. Like, it was so surprising to me. The department heads that were literally like in charge of
they just
their own residents were already taking the condominium.
But that's what I meant by it's also encouraging, because at least back in the day, or at least in other countries, this is very shameful behavior. Not in Ethiopia though. This is sort of this is a little encouraged us, where it means you're smart, it means you're a go-getter, you know what I mean? And it's kind of encouraged with not, I'm not saying with everybody, but it's considered like, that's how you survive, that's how you get by in Ethiopia, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's the only way.
Kinda, yeah, exactly. People are not ashamed of knowing a person, like, being friends with a person. That's like, man, he's so smart, he did that, he did this. They don't care about the victims.
Oh, even
and
like,
it's
have you seen like parents say this to their kids? Like,
exactly.
If you had a kid that was just like righteous, going to 9 to 5 job
idiot,
every day, like, and they'd be like, your friends are doing all of this, just do it so that you become a better. Like, we're poor, like,
victims, nobody cares about the victim. You just sort of get ahead, do what you need to do type of philosophy.
Yeah, and it's like, do it not just in that way as well, in the reverse at the same time. So when you see injustice, when you see suffering, you like everybody around you are like, what the hell? Don't ever say anything. How dare you say anything? Like,
don't bring us down.
Yeah, like you're gonna be trouble for us, like your parents or family members, your wife. Somebody would tell you like, do you want us to die because what you become a taboo, like or like there are names particularly given for a person who just fights for injustice of others.
People I guess follow their leaders at the end of the day. Now the leaders also are openly for the past 30 years. The leaders have always been these slick thieves in a way. They're openly, that's what
one
they do.
way or another.
Yeah, no, it's not even a secret. It's an open secret, right?
But it's not, as I said, it's not just Ethiopia. It's all poor countries. Like, if
absolutely.
the country is incessantly poor, and they can't do anything about it.
Yeah,
like,
it gets worse and worse.
The leaders would not just be like even if they're empathetic or even if they want to do better.
Nothing they can do in order to do this.
They're very comfortable in the fact that like, even if we do something bad in between, nobody's gonna say anything to us because it's just poor people trying to eat.
Yes.
They take away what they have.
It's normalized.
Being a part of whatever is happening to them and all that. And I mean, that ideology is deep rooted in especially being Ethiopian nowadays, because we were poor and now we're like subservient. So subservient and poor are like going hand in hand. Yeah. So like we do the best we can. Like you see a lot of people like like they're at the same level of life for years and years on end. And I was having a discussion with a family member of mine the other day, and I was like, "You're so shameful." And that person was like, "Well, at least I'm working and doing something." Like, this is not working. Yeah. Being in one government facility or government factory for over 30 years and resigning or be retiring at an age of 60 is not something to aspire for. But like now, this is just the way of life, though. It's like, oh yeah, she's been working here for, especially the government centers like the electric power corporations and the tele corporations. Those like corporations that had employees for years and years on end. Like, there is no reform. They don't find new people to have.
It's a very communist-like system. I think that's where it comes from.
Because
the government was a socialist country. Ethiopia was considered a socialist country for the past 30 years. It's not fully capitalist. We have a lot of socialist elements.
Yes, the ideology.
We took a lot of the bad from socialism here, and none of the.
We take a lot of bad from everything.
Yeah, we have a lot of that. We have the bureaucracy of communism. You know what I mean? The whole the red tape is just dealing with the government. It's very the old school
government over there and we over here.
Wait 5 years to get something processed, and it's very old school.
Yeah, I mean, and like, I don't know. As a country, maybe the energy of fighting has been like demolished from us.
I guess Derek killed all the fighters.
True. the educated ones,
The
especially,
educated and the fighters.
especially the educated ones,
So
and,
we're
and the rest just
So
fled,
we're left with the dumb and the lazy.
Yes, and the people that just hid from any change and
Which-
just said like, okay, let's just be quiet,
Which are the dumb and the lazy, and we're children of such people.
which is really sad even,
Yeah.
because now the whole thing that's happening now is just because of the inadequacies of the 20s and 30-year-olds that back then.
Oh, yeah.
Now the new 30 and 20-year-olds are suffering for the injustice of what they did.
That's
in
how it
the
works.
past.
I mean,
But yeah,
it's
like
corrected.
I mean, like with the rise of the U.S. and that Western kind of lifestyle, I think the ideology of capitalism kind of takes away, like the takeaway mentality, has always been there, and I think that's what's doing the most damage as usual. So
So like you said, we take the worst.
yeah.
We
So
take-
maybe the no more thing is kind of a good standpoint to get off from.
most good things.
Now let's just say
start
no
off
more to
good,
everyone.
and then they just get corrupted or
Yeah.
twisted.
Can,
We'll see
no, but
about
like,
it.
can we say like no more to everyone
Everything.
now?
I mean,
Let's
that's the
just
best-
say
that's
a
the best
little
part
bit.
about the whole no more thing. It's so vague.
Yes.
No more what? It can apply to any movement. It can apply to any movement, bro.
But I guess like they have attached it to Ethiopia, so
And
maybe
Africa,
that's-
it's expanding to Africa.
and Africa,
Yeah.
which is like maybe like modern colonialism. It
Yeah,
could
exactly.
expand to
It's vague enough
modern
that exactly,
colonialism.
because some people think it's about Western media, so
Yeah.
painting a certain picture, which is kind of on the surface, and then it gets really deep and more for some people, which is like you said, like
Yeah.
modern colonization and influence.
And yeah,
So
like,
let's.
I mean, we could do a little pause and then we can
Or we can wrap it up. So
okay. So yeah, I think we have discussed more about brief.